Go ahead, shoot me in the chest. Shoot me in the heart. I mean, I've seen a dude get shot through the heart and live like it wasn't even an issue. He's, he's out of the hospital 2 days later. Whistle blows, illegal contact. I mean, that's a clean hit, right? Goes, coach, this is U10. There's no contact. So, a guy standing over my back with his legs straddling me, shooting an AK-47 an inch from my ear. The dirt is hitting my face, just dumping rounds.
So you and I have been friends for a while.
Yeah.
When did we first meet?
We met through Ricky.
Yeah.
Ricky, we were all going skiing. We linked up. I think Ricky and I picked you up maybe at your house in Boulder.
Yep. I just moved to Boulder. Yes,
yeah, went to Eldora. And it's interesting. I met Ricky through Josh.
Okay.
And Josh Jesperson, Navy SEAL, world record holder in Colorado for splitboard and all the 14ers. Total badass, great inspiration for me.
Same.
And he's one of those people that whenever he says, hey, meet this guy, he's like, you'll get along. You do it because it's guaranteed. So he introduces me to Ricky. Ricky said the same thing about you. He's like, dude, you got to meet Steve. You guys are going to hit it off. And the next day we're linking up for skiing, and that was an awesome day, dude.
That was an awesome day. You and Ricky are both super athletes, and you gave me a ton of tips on skiing, and I immediately got better. You are like really a very strong natural coach.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You're a natural athlete, though, and I think there's a connection between athleticism and intelligence that often gets overlooked. People think like, oh, athletes are dumb jocks. No, that is an aspect. Intelligence is really defined by your ability to understand and apply knowledge and information, right? So you have to understand athleticism, and you have to understand the limitations of your body, and then you have to apply that to things that look superhuman to people who aren't athletes. So I think whenever you take someone who's, hyper intelligent, which is how I would describe you, they become very coachable, right? And so even if their coach isn't that good, they can extract the important knowledge and information and then apply it. So I think it's a two-way thing. Right?
Well, thank you. I appreciate those compliments. I think the same of you. I think you're really easy to talk to, and you're easy to listen to
Thanks.
as well. You're very informed, well-read, researched, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Can you mention that to my girlfriend? Because she
Yeah.
tends to disagree at times. So if I could just get that in writing, maybe,
Now, share a little bit about your story. Kind of give the 30,000-foot view of your path so far.
I grew up in New York State. I dropped out of high school. I was a bad kid. I was in all honors classes, but I was going to school about 40 to 50 days a year. Wow. And I was into all sorts of mischief. So I drop out of high school. I was able to gain a Regents diploma and a GED because I had completed everything I needed to by 11th grade. And I say, I'm super smart. I'm better than this. The problem is I'm awesome and smart, and this whole institution is dumb, right? I'm too good for this. I'm going to go to college. So I applied to a community college. I've got a GED. I complete 2 semesters with a 1.26 GPA. And I realized, I'm failing. The school is just not working. No matter how much I want to say that I'm intelligent and the system's wrong, I'm clearly not able to succeed. So I get drawn into the military. And I joined the Army when originally I go into the Marine recruiter. I'm 20 years old, and I'm thinking, I want to be a badass. My whole life, I've always been fascinated by the warrior, right? Somebody asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, a doctor or a lawyer. I was like James Bond, right? And they're like, well, that's not a real guy. I'm like, well, maybe. You wouldn't know, So I was like, I want to be a badass, right? I'm done with school. It's just, I'm no longer learning because I'm not focused and interested. I want to go be like a man. So the Marines, right? I go into the Marines, I apply, I do the ASVAB, which is like a standardized test, almost like their version of an intelligence test. And
you picked the Marines just because they were there?
No, in my mind, from commercials, from rhetoric, the Marines are the badass.
Yeah.
They're the toughest. If you want to be a
Front
badass,
line.
yeah, the Marines. So I go there, I apply, and they're like, oh, because you have a GED, we have to put you on a 6-month waiting list, right? I'm thinking, I didn't even know Marines had, had high school diplomas, right? I thought they were like these dumb guys. Well, so while I'm waiting 6 months, I just stroll into the Army recruiter, and he's like, "Dude, I'll get you in tomorrow, right?" And Marines are terrible, and I'm like, "Nah, dude, they're the bad hat, they're the toughest." He brought up a really good point to me. He says, look at the Marine Special Forces, right? Or their special operations, the Marine Recon. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, shows me this picture. He's like, they've all got iron sights. None of them have infrared lasers. None of them are using night vision. None of them are using thermals. They've all got long barrel M16s, and their uniforms look like they're a decade outdated. And he's like, look at the Army Special Forces, the Green Berets. And I'm like, whoa. And he's like, the best of the best. They look at this equipment, look at this budget, look at everything they have. And I'm like, oh, that's a really good point. If you're going to go play football, if you're going to play football, do you want a good helmet or do you want no helmet, right? So I go back to the Marine recruiter and I'm like, hey, what's up with this, dude, right? like, why you got these old rusty weapons? Why are you shooting with iron sights? Why don't you have ACOGs? And he goes, because we're Marines. We're so good, we don't need that stuff. I thought, but Navy SEALs use that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so
Use every advantage
so
you can.
you're lying to me, but I can see in your eyes you're not lying. You're just dumb. So I ended up joining the Army, right? But that was it. It was just I got a vibe that something didn't add up with the Marines. I joined the Army, and that kind of starts my life, really. I go into the Army. I went in it. I think I was 21 when I started basic training. My MOS, I was infantry, 11 Bravo. I go to Fort Benning. I get out of basic training. I get based in Fort Hood, Texas, where I didn't want to be, 4th Infantry Division, and my career starts. I'm a private, then I'm a machine gunner, then I'm a team leader. And so after about a year or so, year and a half in the Army, I'm a team leader, I'm a specialist. We deploy to Iraq. We go to Baghdad, southeast Baghdad. It's called Al Jadida, which is like New Baghdad, if you will. And then I'm a corporal, right? And then I'm a sergeant, and I come back, and we do a year off. I'm a staff sergeant. We go to Iraq. This time I'm now with 1st Cavalry Division. We're in southern Iraq, Nasiriyah. I'm not religious, but if you follow biblical scripture, it's where the ziggurat is, the house of Abraham, the ancient city of Ur, right? So it's this really phenomenal place. I'm there for a year. Different mission rather than banging heads in Baghdad. It's more people refer to it as wind, hearts, and minds. But I was running a MIT team, a transition team to coordinate Iraqi military and U.S. military. But my military career ends. I'm done. I've done 6 years in the Army. I got out as a staff sergeant. I thought I had a great career. What am I going to do next, right? And I said, I love this this military. I love this danger, this importance, right? When you're doing missions, they matter, right? It's real. The stuff you're doing has people's lives at stake. It affects thousands, potentially millions of people's lives. A mistake could cost lives. A successful mission could save lives. And you realize you're part of this really serious thing and you're just a guy and you're with all these other guys and you're trying to figure out how to complete these missions that could potentially change the course of a war, right? That's really awesome. And how do you go from that? What's the civilian counter to that, right? What's the civilian counterpart to, an infantry squad leader who, kicks in doors and fights battles and leads troops and what does that tie into? So naturally I'm into it and I'm like, I want to be a contractor. I want to go, work for Blackwater, one of these companies. And that's what I do. I apply. In the process of that, I also apply to college, right? And I ended up picking the college route. I didn't go into contracting. I said, I don't know. I want to go do this college life. I'm watching college football. I'm watching all these people having fun and instantly like that, just a few YouTube videos, some Google searches, and I'm like, University of Colorado. That's where I want to be, right? I'm a skier at heart, right? That's what I've done my whole life. I love the mountains. I've always wanted to live in Colorado, and I've got this thing called the GI Bill, so I can go to school for free. Oh, sorry, they'll pay me to go to school
That's
for free,
amazing.
right?
Good.
What an awesome thing that,
Yeah.
that our government's done for veterans.
Yes.
You serve and they give you free college
Yeah.
and they pay you while you're tax-free while you're going to college, so you don't have to worry about living expenses.
it.
Yeah, I want to do that for the rest of my life. 93% of veterans with the GI Bill don't ever get a bachelor's degree or anything. They don't use it.
Why do you think that is?
They're not interested. I think that that's a lot of the transition. You know, you have free college, not just free, paid to go to school for free, and they get out of the military and they're unemployed and they're struggling. Just go to college. They'll pay you. You know, I think at the time 2013 or 2011 when I was going to college at CU, I was getting, you know, $1,700-$1,800 tax free as a living expense, right?
Wow.
And my rent in Boulder was $700. So that's a pretty good. That's without a job, right? So
That's a good deal.
I've got these military buddies that are complaining, like, oh, I don't have a job, I'm unemployed. And it's like, well, okay, why don't you go get a free education and they'll pay you? Nah, I'm not into that. And the thing I heard the most was, well, 93% don't attain a degree, close to 90% start. So they quit after a semester. And what I heard the most was, oh, I don't want to be around these dumb kids. They don't know nothing, you know. I just came back from 10 years of, you know, war, and I got to sit with these 18-year-olds and listen to their opinions. And yeah, yeah, because you don't have that opinion. Your opinion is 10 years of war, right? So you missed 10 years. You missed from 18 to 28. You were out fighting war instead of going to college, socializing, whatever, being part of this system. So yeah, you should listen to them. And two, if you've got all this great information from your experiences, why don't you share that with them?
Yeah.
So I think college is the best transition for veterans. It gives you direction. It gives you purpose. You get out of the military and somebody says, well, what are you doing with your life? You went from being, I don't know, a sergeant leading troops in battle. You come home on leave. Everybody says, oh, you're a hero, right? Grandma's like, oh, you know, we love Billy. He's a hero. He's a badass. Yeah. Well, as soon as you're out, you come home and they don't care about you anymore. You know, they're like, what are you doing now? Oh, you're working a fast food restaurant? That's cool. You know, and imagine the service member who goes from leading troops on the battlefield to flipping burgers behind a kitchen, right? Goes from being in charge of millions of dollars of equipment, people's lives, real big deal missions, to now he's in charge of, you know, the dish pit. That's hard for him. That creates a serious issue, an adjustment disorder, if you will. Well, college is a great transition from that. You come out of the military, there is nothing that really corresponds directly. You know, people think law enforcement, military doesn't really transition well into law enforcement. You know, if you're an infantry, if you're headbanger, that's not law enforcement. That's not what we want our law enforcement doing, right? You know, we don't want cops doing trench warfare. We want cops serving and protecting, right? And that's not always the job of the military. So there's not a lot of transition. But if you go to college, you're instantly, through your GI Bill, you're instantly getting paid, so you're stable, you have a place to live, you're learning, you're socializing, you're interacting, you're getting an education, figuring out, what do I want to learn about that can give me a career? You got all these fantastic skills, discipline that'll transition really well to the classroom. But now you have an identity. You know, when you're home visiting on Thanksgiving and grandma's like, oh, what are you doing now, Billy? You say, oh, I'm a student, I'm in college. That really seems, nobody questions you then. Oh, good luck, awesome, what are you majoring in? That's it. To go from having an identity to not having an identity is dangerous, I think. For a veteran transitioning, college gives you that instant identity that you can be proud of. Oh, well, I'm going to get an education at a prestigious university, right? There you go, you're done. And during that time, you are learning what you want to do, right? You're networking, you're figuring out what interests you, and you're gaining real education in it that you can apply. So that's what I did. And during that time, I got to play rugby, right? Which was such an awesome experience. There was nothing that, to me, mimicked infantry tactics more than the sport of rugby, right? In the infantry, we're all about our alpha team is suppressing the enemy, while our bravo team is flanking, right? And then crosses over the objective. That's the movement in rugby. That's forwards, running crash balls, hammering, backs lining them on the flank, getting the ball out and moving.
Wow.
In rugby, you have a set of forwards. That's your suppression squad, right? It's usually about 8 guys. That's the squad. 8 to 9 is the squad in the military. You've got an assault squad, right? Those are your backs. Those are 7 guys, right? About the same number, and they're coordinated by the scrum half in the middle. That's like a squad leader or a platoon sergeant coordinating 2 squads. And in between those squads, they have pods. They have 4-man pods. Well, that's your fire team inside a squad. I was like, this is infantry tactics. And it was. I think that had a lot to do with the design of rugby, because if you want to fight for ground, move your objective from one inch of the battlefield to the other, you need a plan. You need to hammer, flank, hammer, flank, whatever. So infantry tactics, that creates a good playbook for rugby. So that was a great transition for me. And at the same time, I'm getting to build friendships with people the same way I got friendships in the military. We're on a battlefield, we're on a sports field, right? We're training. We're at practice, versus the shooting range. We're in the gym. It's just we're building these bonds through challenge, physical engagement, adversity, right? And coming together as a team and creating some aspect of a standards for everybody who's on that team is you that they're qualified. And then you go out and execute. You go out on the field and work as a team to defeat the enemy. It's the ultimate, sports are the ultimate transition, in my opinion, for veterans to the civilian world. So I go through all that process. I go to CU, I graduate, I major in psychology, I focus on behavioral neuroscience. I learn so much, it's awesome. I get out. What am I going to do with my life? I have kids, and that just kind of became, my wife at the time had, a stable job. She was making a great income. And I got to be the stay-at-home dad, right? Which is a really weird transition to go to as a military guy who was kind of always felt like you were in charge, leading, the protector, to now I'm living off my wife's paycheck. Mm-hmm. She's the breadwinner, and it's my job to clean the house, take the kids to school, do stuff like that. And I become super involved in their sports, in coaching. And I've got boys, and they're fantastic athletes. I'm coaching football in Broomfield.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the U.S. to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the U.S. in soil in a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1-week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the U.S. without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors: broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal: eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese. You can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
Let me backtrack here. I get my son into flag football as kind of like, I get him into soccer as his first sport. And real quick, I'm like, oh, he's an athlete. He's never played soccer before. He has like a hat trick game. And I'm like, oh, well, he's an athlete. That's not me. I was like, this guy's an athlete. So, I'm like, soccer's cool, but right behind us is this flag football game. And I'm noticing all the soccer parents, they're cheering at the flag football game, and they're turned around to see what's going on in this like kindergarten level flag football game while their own children are playing soccer, but they're just, dude, they're like, this football game's awesome.
This is where the action's at.
So I take my son, I'm like, I think he's gonna like flag football. We put him in it. His first practice, he doesn't do that well. He just doesn't seem to understand what they're asking. He doesn't really know about football. He's not doing well in drills. And I'm like, man. And they got their first game in 2 weeks, and they have no more practices for 2 weeks. So we've had one practice, and next it's going to be a game. And I'm like, man, I don't know. So for 2 weeks every day, my son, he's 6 years old at the time. We just practice in the backyard. Everything I saw in this flag football, I never played flag football. I never played football in high school, so I don't even really know the rules. But everything I saw in this practice, I said, okay, this is the skills they want. And so we build these routines, we emulate the practice, and I'm just running drills. Comes back, he's got his first flag football game. Dude, he scored like 4 touchdowns. It was unbelievable. He made all these tackles. And what I thought was like, whoa, this guy who didn't know anything did really well. And I mean, he's just more athletic than me, but he's not like some super elite level athlete, not yet anyway. But I'm thinking, like, how did he go from struggling to all of a sudden being dominant? And I thought, oh, well, it's the practice we did, the coaching. And that kind of like got me into coaching. So now I watch this flag season and I analyze it, and I'm thinking things. I've got my stopwatch there, and I'm like, I noticed they have a line of 6 people doing a tackle drill. Well, if every tackle drill takes 20 seconds and you got 6 people, that's 120 seconds, right? And so each kid only gets a 26 rotation, or a 20-second rotation for 120 seconds of time, right? So that means in an hour practice, you're really only getting about 10 minutes of practice. Well, if we had 2 tackling groups and we rotated, now we've doubled their practice. So like I'm thinking things like this, while I'm sitting in the bleachers, watching kindergartners do flag football. But the gears are turning. And so the next season, I volunteered to coach. And dude, we dominate. We go with like 11-1. I've got this team of like kindergartners, first graders. We essentially win whatever championship. It's through Broomfield, right here in Colorado, but it's a bunch of counties. I mean, 100 teams, and we beat them all, and we're the best. We go undefeated, we win, and people are always coming up to me like, "Wow, this team's so great." Blah blah blah. How do you do this? How do you do this? And I started thinking like, well, dude, I'm good at this. Like I didn't know the rules of football. I never played before. I'd never coached before, and we just go and dominate. And really, I'm just doing this for my son. Later, he gets into rugby because I played rugby in college. He gets into rugby, flag rugby, same thing. I didn't coach this team, but I helped out a little bit, and they go same record, or maybe it was 10-0 or 11-0. And they win the Colorado State Championship in flag rugby. Superior Eagles. These guys are great. The coaches, one of the coaches, his name is Eric, same name as my son. He's a firefighter in Superior. Just an awesome, great leader. Eric Szabo is his name. He kind of did the same thing that I did. He looked at what he had to work with and said, how can I, and he looked at what needed to happen and said, what can I do realistically to make these kids win, right? And I saw efficiency again. I saw focusing on, well, I don't want to get into details. Anyway, I learned a lot from him, right? And so now I've got this kind of idea. I've got observing some coaches that are subpar. I've got my own experience, and I've observed a coach that's great. And so now I'm ready to coach tackle football. That's what I decide I'm going to do, right? Just because I want my son to have a good program. So I become a first grade tackle football coach, or second grade at Broomfield. We got a great team, and I recruit a bunch of dads. And they all know about football. They know, and I let them know. I'm like, hey, I don't know about football, but I know you guys do. Oh, you play defense, right? You did this. You should be in charge of the defense, or you played it, all this stuff. And I go to these coaching seminars, and I over the summer, and I learn from great coaches. They talk about their playbooks, their strategies, and all this stuff, all this great information. And everything I got was fantastic. But the one thing nobody ever talked about was leadership, how to motivate kids, how to get them focused, how to get them interested. And I thought, and here I was, I'm big on efficiency, right? We got an hour practice. Usually in an hour practice, go look at any practice. In an hour, kids are only getting 10 minutes of actual practice. The other 50, they're observing. They're not being physical. And that's why they do things at practice like beginning of practice or the end. Oh, we're going to run sprints, right? Why are we running sprints? To build our endurance. Well, why wasn't our endurance built during practice, right? Instead of doing a tackling drill every 20 seconds or like every minute for 20 seconds, let's do one every 20 seconds for 20 seconds.
Nonstop.
Yes. And guess what? We don't have to do at the end of the day, endurance stuff. So that kind of like efficiency, because in the military, stuff like that decides whether you survive, whether you guys are efficient, right? I start bringing that in and making everything really efficient. But I really start to think practice is only, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours a day. There's 21 more hours in the day, right? How do I get these kids to practice at home? So our entire youth playbook, I mimicked Madden, Xbox and PlayStation, the Madden game. I drew all the playbooks, used all the terminology from Madden. And I made sure that every one of those kids, I made sure their parents that they were playing Madden. And every kid's into video games, right? So now they're at home every day playing Madden and learning the playbook, not even realizing it, learning the terminology, communicating with each other on a headset, with the people that are already on a team.
Wow.
And they're starting to gravitate. They're playing the positions that they play on the field. And so here they are in their free time, developing their brain, growing a passion. I think almost that was bigger than some of the stuff we did at practice, right? Because now it's not a 3-hour practice. Now it's like a 16-hour practice, right? It's at home. Bringing teams together on the weekend to do hikes. That was when Pokemon Go kicked off. I downloaded Pokemon Go so I could connect with all these kids that were into Pokemon, and that we would talk about that at the beginning of practice. Hey, what Pokemon did you guys collect? But really what I was trying to do was get them out there and boulder in the mountains, hiking, spinning stops, or whatever, create some connection. And then the other thing I found on the field for youth that was so huge was communication, right? And I brought the video game analogy back. I said, how many of you guys play Call of Duty? It's all of us, right? All of us. I'm like, cool. How many of you guys play with headsets? All of us, we're not noobs. Yeah, we're the real deal. I said, right. And I go, what happens when you don't have a headset? And they're like, oh, yeah, you can't. It's just like the football field. It's just like the rugby field. It's communication, right? Without a headset, your 4-man Call of Duty squad can't communicate. You can't coordinate. The communication is almost more powerful than the execution, if you will. So that became another thing, is how do we communicate on the field? How do you create a playbook that kids can understand? How do you get kids to focus and pay attention as if they were high schoolers? And that was a big one. So the first week of my practices they weren't, all right, this is this play. This is this. It was, I called it conditioning the listening. I'm going to spend a week, almost like a hell week kind of thing. I'm going to spend a week making these kids learn how to take direction. We're not doing football. I'm going to teach you how to do what I tell you, because that is what you learn in the military. And that, 14, 21 weeks of infantry basic, you're learning how to shoot a gun and march and all that stuff. But what you're really learning is how to take direction. How to remove your emotion from whatever's going on. If we're on a mission, I don't really care about your feeling. Like, that's not important right now. We got to focus on the mission. If you can get a bunch of second graders to remove emotion and focus on the mission, dude. So we dominated, and I used this, and so through youth, I coached rugby, I coached wrestling, I coached football. I even got stuck coaching lacrosse one season, which I had no idea about, and all with success. Never had a team that didn't go to a playoff game or that didn't win a championship. At this point now, I have like 2 state championships for rugby, Colorado and Illinois. I got a state championship for flag football, right? I had a state placement wrestler, the only wrestler I coached, went to states in his rookie season. Wow. Never been pinned in his career, right? I want to give myself credit, right? But it's the athletes that are performing that are doing these things. And it's not really that I'm a great coach. I just found a way to teach them to learn to pick up information, right? And once they're able to receive information and apply it, well, then it's limitless, right? Then they can take their athleticism to the next level. Funny, quickly, I had this great football season. Families want to start a lacrosse team. They're like, do you want to coach a lacrosse team? I'm like, no, I don't. I'm burned out already. I don't know anything about lacrosse. And they're like, oh, you did great with football. Yeah, I don't. They're like, please, we don't have a coach. Coach this team. Just coach it for a couple weeks till we can get a coach. I'm like, all right. I don't know what to do. I don't know lacrosse. I've never been to a lacrosse game. So I get on YouTube, right? And I start looking at NCAA lacrosse thing because college is kind of like where I focus. I think that there's a lot of athleticism and doctrine and information, but there's also, you're still coaching. In the NFL, you're not coaching people. You're just giving order. These are all professionals. But college, you're still coaching young men, right? You still have to build character, whatever. So I'm watching NCAA videos. I'm learning about lacrosse. And I'm seeing that a lot of dominant teams hit hard. They hit hard. And I've got like 2 weeks to get these kids ready for a game. And none of them have played lacrosse before. I don't think in 2 weeks I can teach them how to pass and catch at an elite level. I know I can't. I'm blown away by the dexterity, the coordination this game takes. Ball flying over 100 miles an hour to a little net. You got to twirl it while you ride. But I thought, I know most of these kids play football. I know I can teach them to hit, right? And so if I can get these second graders, these 8-year-olds to hit, we'll win. I don't care. We'll win. We'll hit so hard that there'll just be loose balls on the ground. We'll get them in the goal. We'll hit. So for 2 weeks, it's hit. I've got tackling dummies that are wearing the jerseys of the team we're about to play, and it's just like hit, kill, hit. They're hitting the stick. You're getting under the gear, right? We're hitting bags that has gear. They're learning how to lay people out, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna win, and they're fired up, right? First game, started the game. Ref blows the whistle. Game starts. 5 seconds into it, my son lays a hit on this kid. My 8-year-old son lays a hit on this 8-year-old kid, off his feet, out of bounds, helmet off. And I'm like, yes. Ref blows a whistle. Illegal contact, he says, legal contact. I'm like, yeah, I get it. It's a big hit. I look at him. I'm like, bro, awesome, clean. Do it again. 30 seconds later, another kid on the field lays somebody out. I'm like, yeah. Whistle blows, illegal contact. That's a clean hit, and I know they're clean. I'm watching these hits. Like I've been studying lacrosse now for 2 weeks, right? Obviously, I know everything. 30 seconds later, a third hit. Just devastating hit, and you feel bad, but you're like, yeah, right.
Everyone's okay.
They're executing. They're doing, and we're dominating, right? This other team can't move. They can't hold the ball. So this kid just gets laid out. Ref blows a whistle, and he's like, all illegal contact. And I'm like, ref, those are clean hits. And he goes, coach, get over here. And I go, ref. I go, those hits are clean. I'm talking about the area, their stance, everything. He goes, coach, this is U10. There's no contact. So I'm like, bring it in. New plan. We're going to pass, right? So we get destroyed for the rest of the game. Later, a new coach takes over. They have a fantastic season. They go to the playoffs. But it's yeah, he's like, it's U10. There's no contact, right? I was like, oh, my bad, sorry about your children. But yeah, adapt and overcome. So lacrosse was my sport. Anyway, so I go through all this youth stuff. That's kind of my life, right? I'm raising boys. I'm coaching sports, and I'm like a full-time dad. That starts to drain on me, not because it's not rewarding, and not because, what better job could there be than just raising your kids while your wife or significant other pays the bills? Like, this is awesome, right? But it's also emasculating, and there's now this identity starts to leave because, your coach are great. You've won a flag football tournament. You've won the state championship in some youth sport, but you didn't win it. The kids won it, right? And it's not a paycheck, and it's awesome, but it's probably going to be forgotten soon. The next season, and I'm starting to think, what do I want to do with what do I want to do? And as a vet still, I'm still struggling with transition, even, almost a decade later. And I'm missing I'm missing the military, but not the military life. I'm missing the identity, the importance, the idea of waking up and knowing that whatever you're about to do is serious. It's life or death. It has real consequences. It has real reward. And I'm just not, you get it from sports, you get it from being a dad, you get it from a job, getting a promotion, but it's not the same. And there's also, in my life at the time, there isn't a lot of risk or adventure. Bring in Josh Jesperson, right? I met him earlier, but I meet him at CU. We play rugby together. For a couple weeks, we don't really talk. We're playing rugby, and we have our first game somewhere. Oh, we're introducing everybody on the rugby team. There's a couple of vets on there. There's about 60 people on CU's rugby team, and they're all like, hey, how many people are 18? A third of the team raised their hand. How many people are 20? Another third. They're like, how many people are over 21? I've got my hand up now. And then they're like, how many people are over 25? And then I look, it's like Josh, right? And I'm like, oh, this 25-year-old guy. And I'm like, maybe that's it. And then they're like, they point at me and they're like, Nippert, how old are you? And I'm like 30. And then, everybody like looks around, and they're like, where'd you play rugby at before? I'm like, I never played before. I didn't play any sports with balls growing up. I did crew and wrestling. And they're kind of like, oh. And I'm also wearing this knee brace because, I've got this injury from the Army. I've got this full knee brace on. I've got this shoulder brace because I just had a shoulder reconstruction. And they're kind of like, right, But I've identified, I'm like, oh, there's like a 25-year, dude my age, right? So it turns out we're talking, we go to our first game. He's like, oh, yeah, I was in the military. I was like, oh, me too. I'm like, what did you do? He's like, oh, I was a Navy SEAL. I'm like, all right, yeah. Oh, you're a Navy SEAL? Yeah, sure. I've heard that before,
yeah,
right? No, but he was. And he was a badass. Yeah. And he's a super intelligent guy, like you, hyper intelligent, right? and we kick it off. We have it's like we go out after a rugby game where we're fighting on the battlefield together. We go out to the bar. I'm driving the team van because I'm the only person who's over 25, that can rent a fucking car, right? So I'm driving the team, this, like 20 passenger van. I'm like, Josh, hop in, we're going to the bar. So it's like me and Josh and I think a couple of coaches that and we roll out to, the bar. We're out in Arizona and we're like, let's go tear it up. And Josh and I are out there. We just met and we're out at a bar and we're talking about military stuff. We just did rugby. I'm like, let's talk about military. And he's asked me what I did. And I was like, I started off as a machine gunner. And he's like, yeah, me too. That was one of my first jobs on teams. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're a machine gunner? And I was like, oh, well, if you're a machine gunner, if that's true, you could answer this question. What's the best band ever to shoot a machine gun to? Without hesitation, he's just like, Led fucking Zeppelin. And I'm like, easy question. What's the best song to shoot? And it's Whole Lot of Love, without even like, a Whole Lot of Love. And I'm like, fucking right. It's like Step Brothers. Woohoo, we're best friends. So we go out, we tear up Arizona. I mean, we were wild to come back, after drinking, come back at 6 a.m. We were not driving a vehicle, climb back over the wall into the hotel where we see, I won't say his name, Brian. I won't say his last name for his protection, but he's on top of a mound of beer cans of like 200 beer cans sitting at the pool by himself, like this Viking king and crushing this beer. And I was like, oh yeah, rugby's like, I get this vibe. Reminds me of the military. So anyway, so that's how I meet Josh. What he did for me, what I was struggling with, what I was searching for in rugby and finding a little bit of, but not enough, was this danger, this passion, I did 150 direct action raids. I went on over 150 missions where we kicked in a door to engage or destroy or detain a target, right? That's like fucking cool shit. It's hardcore. At least for me it was, right? And then it's like, yeah, rugby's cool, but it's not quite that cool, right? I'm never like landing on a rooftop in a helicopter, and it's like cool, but it's not that cool. And I'm missing that. It's addictive, that stuff, right? It really is. I don't know if I ever sent you that wonderful Solomon TV movie. It's called Tempting Fear. It's sort of a series of journal entries from Andre Franson, who's an amazing extreme skier. He passed away in South America in an avalanche with JP Eclair, but this was before that. And this guy does hardcore stuff. It's called Tempting Fear. Seriously, watch it. I'll send it to you. But he talks about almost like the addiction of going out there and pushing it to the limit. And he always talks about what's the end. What's the end is when you die, when you push it to the limit to the point where you don't survive. And in his transition, he says this wonderful thing. He said he realizes that the end is not death. It's something way scarier. The end is when the things that used to bring excitement and risk, the unknown, have become mundane, right? They're no longer doing for you what they're meant to do, what they're intended to do, right? Their purpose is gone. That's the end. It's like and that's scary. And so I'm almost kind of like feeling that because I can't find what I miss, in rugby and in coaching and being a dad. And Josh is like, dude, get into the mountains with me, right? And I love the mountains. I love hiking. I love skiing. And he's like, no. He's like, well, there's skiing and there's, there's hiking and then there's mountaineering. And real quick, I think in a year of hanging out with Josh, I mean, first off, we skied every month of the year for years. I didn't miss a month, almost all backcountry. But I had more near-death experience in the mountains in a year trying to keep up with Josh than I had in 5 years in the Army, 2 combat deployments a year each. I mean, in Iraq, I was blown up. My vehicle was directly blown up 5 times, right? I had more near-death experiences trying to keep up with Josh, right? That dude's badass. But what he showed me was the life that I had lived that I'd missed was, I mean, it's still there. Still, it's not gone. You just have to go find it. The other thing that I learned and I was struggling with, I mentioned how those vets didn't want to go to college. They didn't want to hang out with these young kids, right? They wanted to keep this mentality that they're badass and nobody understands them. Going to the mountains, right? I got my ass kicked in the mountains. The people that just, and when I say kicked my ass, I mean maybe saved my life, maybe taught me something, maybe got me to a summit that I wouldn't have been able to do on my own. they weren't your stereotypical jacked meathead. Some of these guys are, you would think, oh, maybe that guy's soft, right? Oh, look at that skinny guy. He looks like a Starbucks barista. Yeah, that dude will hike 22 miles with a 60-pound pack and ice climb to the top of that mountain, right? Wow. And what I learned was, as badass or as cool, as hardcore as I thought I was, there were so many people in this world that are so much more badass than me that I could learn from, and they're not who I thought they were. They're everywhere. They're investment bankers. They work at fast food restaurants. They're students. They're unemployed. They're females. They're people that I never thought before could do certain things, and they're just phenomenal athletes. And the mountains, the connection, the similarities between the mountains and military life. It's in mountaineering, like, you got to check your gear, right? It'll save your life. You have to train. You have to have your teammates, like, stuff is serious. Mm-hmm. If you mess up, you die, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of really cool transition in that as well. So Josh teaches me that. It gets me into it. But then I start getting addicted again. I'm in the mountains. I'm doing some hardcore stuff, I've had some near-death experiences. But it's all self-serving, right? I'm not... Yeah, I did something really awesome. I survived. I made this summit. I did this crazy. I shredded this killer coolie and risked my life. But what did I do? It was just, I was serving me, right? It was just me. And started to realize that some of what I was addicted to or I was missing from the military wasn't just the adventure and the action. It was the importance of the role, right? The outcome. You're not just helping you or finding excitement or adrenaline. You're saving lives. You're influencing other people. And at the same time that I'm learning about the mountains, I have this other kind of like epiphany. When you think you can't summit, right? When you're looking at an obstacle in life that you've come to the conclusion that I can't complete that. It's not possible, but you somehow find a way. That is like eye-opening, right? Mm. And mountains are like that. You see the summit and it doesn't seem possible. And you're dealing with fatigue, technical skills that you lack. But if you just keep grinding and you just keep pushing and just one more step, eventually you will summit. And all of a sudden you're on top of this peak with this view. I mean, metaphorical, but also real. Here you are, you've summited, completed a task you couldn't do. And I thought there is no better feeling in the whole world than doing that, until I got to bring somebody up to a summit who thought that they couldn't do it. And I got to watch them go through that whole process and their head open. And that was even more rewarding. So then all of a sudden it hit me. It's like, okay, I know what I'm looking for. I want this adventure. I want this danger. I want this seriousness, but I want to serve. I want to do something that benefits somebody else, when it's, you get a gift and you feel great, but you almost feel guilty because somebody worked for it or spent. But when you give a gift, and I mean, that's like,
you get more out of it.
So I do, right? Yeah. So then I realized that's what I'm missing. Mm-hmm. It's not just the danger was almost like a cover for it. Mm-hmm. It's really, I'm missing serving. I started working in security. I'm doing all that stuff. I'm working concert security. Sometimes I'm working with Ricky. He got me on the Country Jam contract. I'm doing some personnel security. Some what do they call it? PSD, personal security. So I'm starting to work in the security industry because I have this background in the military, right? I have this degree in psychology, which actually kind of plays a big factor in security because that's what you're looking at as people, right? That's the threat. Fast forward 2000, was it 21, 22, Ukraine kicks off, right? And this, like, a lot of vets sit around and they say things like, hey, man, I miss the old times. I wish I could be out on the front lines. You just hear it all the time, nonstop. Oh, I wish I was back. And I felt that way. I'm missing this. I wish, and all my friends, I'd hear this cliche. I wish we'd start a war with Russia or China or Korea because I'm ready to go fight. Well, it was almost like that happened. Like all of a sudden Russia, this kind of like, I don't know, iconic enemy of the U.S. is now invading a country, an ally, a place that we've just been, building up, and they're doing horrible things, atrocities. I don't want to get into, politics, but in my opinion, they're doing really bad things, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, whoa, this this thing that was a joke, like, oh, I wish there was World War III, would start off so I can go out and do what I used to do. Well, it's actually like happening, and what's going on is so bad that I don't think like it's a no-brainer to get on the side of the Ukrainians, in my opinion, right? This is a sovereign country, a peaceful country being invaded. Kids are being killed, tortured, dismembered. Old people are being killed, tortured, dismembered. Women are being raped to death, right? Stuff like that. 3,000 children have been forcibly removed from their families and sold into slavery, sex trafficking, or just to adoptive parents, told that their parents are killed forcibly. I mean, like that's just the kids, right? And now we're looking at hundreds of thousands of deaths. So I'm like, if you want a cause you can get behind and not feel guilty, right? I mean, there's always guilt associated with military stuff, right? If you're a headbanger, if you're a pipe hitter, if you're a shooter, you're always going to deal with the fact that technically you're committing arguably the worst sin of all, right? Murder. But sometimes I think they'll say, hey, well, that guy or those people, they deserve it, right? Nobody's feeling bad if you go fight those guys. And Russia creates this situation, in my opinion. How can you not be behind the Ukrainians? So I'm reaching out to all my military buddies, and I'm like, it's happening. Dude, it's World War. And Ukraine is saying, we don't care where you're from. You can come join us. Nobody does that. Nobody does that like that. And for the first time ever that I know of, and at least what the internet told me, the United States said, yeah, if you want to go help Ukraine, actually you can do that. It's always been illegal to go help a foreign military, and you may lose your citizenship, and we may not let you back in the country, right? You'll definitely will never get a security clearance, I'll tell you that much. But Ukraine, we're so behind this, we're actually going to allow U.S. citizens to go over there, volunteer and fight with a foreign military, and when they come back, maybe we'll give them a high five. And I was like, dude, it's like the stars are aligning. Because the Iraq War, I went into the military just because I wanted to learn. I just wanted to be a badass. I wasn't passionate about the conflict, right? In fact,
Was it like 9/11 and then?
Yeah, and it's just like the way people argued the politics of it. You couldn't ignore it. Ukraine, this isn't politics. This is evil, really evil people coming in and doing bad things to oppressing people, and somebody needs to come save them. Sign me up, right? And so I'm reaching out to my army buddies. And I'm like, dude, it's happening. Let's go. Nah, I'm not, I got kids now. I'm like, yeah, me too. I got 3 boys. Come on, let's go. No, I got a job now. Yeah, me too. Come on. Like, this is more important than that. Oh, no, I would, but I recently, I pulled my hamstring. So yeah, me too, dude. I just had a knee surgery. Come on. Like, this is serious. Like, this is what we're born to do. Let's go do this. And it was really hard because I watched this. Every dude that I reached out to, these guys that I've known for decades that are saying things like, I'm looking for a conflict against somewhere to fight, to go to do what I can't do anymore, are like, nah, not me. I'm not in. And all of a sudden I'm like, whoa. Like that was hard because it was like, wait, am I the only person who shares this? So I decided I want to go and help in Ukraine, right? But I don't know. Yeah, I'm angry at Russians, but I don't just want to like go fly, like drop me off over there and I'll kill all the bad guys. It's like, I want to help. And I reached out to you. You helped me a lot with this. I thought, because it's like, let me talk to Steven, right? Like he could help me see this. And we came up with this idea of getting food and supplies to cities in Ukraine that were like cut off. Right?
Yeah, freeze-dried and powdered meals.
Yeah, and that was all, that's all your science. But I was like, you basically said, hey, there's a way to create something that you could feed this many people, and it would be this weight and this size. And I thought, I could carry that much on my back. And if I had 3 other dudes, we could carry enough nutrients and food to maybe for a small town to sustain itself for a week or something, right? Survive. And if we're a bunch of badasses and we can fit it in our backpack, we can get into that city. I don't care how many dudes are I don't care what's there. We'll get in, we'll get that food dropped off. And so I'm like having this pipe dream of like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, I was very inspired in that moment too.
Dude, you inspired me. I mean, it was just to be able to talk with somebody and converse, bounce ideas, but create something that I thought was totally viable. But the only thing I was missing was people to do it with. I mean, I can't put this together myself. And I couldn't find one person on the planet that wanted to go do this with me, right? At least not one person that, had qualifications to go do it. And that was disheartening, right? So I start this fundraiser. I start GoFundMe page, and I just say, hey, I want to help Ukraine. So I want to raise some money, and my goal is to get to Ukraine and to help. And so whatever you want to say, if you want to send equipment, I'll get it over there. If you want to send body armor or first aid, I'll get it over there. And I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I'm like creating this kind of like living project and starting fundraisers because I know I'm going to need a plane ticket over there. You could give me $1 billion, I'm sure it'll get spent, right? There's somebody who needs it. Well, GoFundMe shuts it down right away because it's like a conflict thing. I probably had poor language, like that made it an issue. But my GoFundMe gets shut down, and I'm able to start another donation thing, kind of like through PayPal, and and I'm raising money, but it's nothing substantial, and I still don't know exactly what I want to do. And through this frustration, I just decide, I think I just want to go join the Ukrainian Foreign Legion. I'm burned out. I'm trying too hard. I don't know what I want to do. I know I can fight, right? I know I'm a shooter, and I know they'll take me. So I think maybe that's what I want to do. And it just kind of shifts to this kind of like darker direction. Like, I'm going there to like stack bodies or kick some ass or whatever, but that's my only option. I want to help, and I'm not really seeing a way to do it. So I'm continuing to fundraise. I get in touch with, Mike Shelley, who used to own and run the Moe's Barbecue in Boulder and a few other Moe's, super hyper intelligent guy, right? One of the smartest people I've ever known. It's become a mentor for me, right? But he's a genius when it comes to fundraising, really just making anything happen, anything. But I'm talking to him about my situation and my passion, how I want to do this. And he's like, dude, let me help you. This guy, like in like, I don't know, 2 weeks' time has raised $10,000 for me, cash, donations. I've got night vision. I've got PVS 14s, brand new. I've got infrared beams for my rifle. I've got all this stuff, right? All this equipment. It's like he's done all that. And I'm like, wow, that's real talent, right? This guy's got a skill, So then it's starting to become fun, seeing the coordination, the networking, and I'm feeling like things are going to happen, and I'm getting excited again. In this process, though, when I'm talking to, sorry to backtrack, but when I'm looking for fundraising, I'm talking about Ukraine, and I feel like I've got this great reason to donate $5, $1, right? I've got friends from college that are sending me, mailing me socks, or dude, I think you donated money to the thing, and all of that's awesome, but I just can't reach enough people, and I'm always baffled at why are people not like, why wouldn't you get behind that? Like, why wouldn't you donate $5? Like, I know you just went out for a $400 dinner at Flagstaff House, right? You can drop $5 to, feed some Ukrainians or whatever. And I'm just like thinking, man, like what's up with this? And the most heartbreaking experience, I'm out in Chicago, I'm parking a car. I was actually on my way to the Ukrainian embassy or the Ukrainian consulate, sorry. And I parked my car in a garage in Chicago. I'm paying the parking meter. On top of the box is somebody's credit card. I pull it off. It's like a platinum Amex. I'm like, oh, this is a serious card, right? It's got a name on it. This lady, we'll say her name's Sue, right? And I'm like, one more task for me to do. I need to find Sue. So throughout that day, I spend half the day on the internet trying to find this person. I've got their name, and I'm able to find them, oddly enough, not through LinkedIn, not through Facebook, but through Instagram. And I get a response, and I say, hey, I think I found your Amex, your platinum Amex on. Oh my God, thank you. She's like, you're a lifesaver. Where are you? What do I have to do? I told her there's a parking garage in Chicago. She's like, oh my God, I'm in Indiana. Is that where I left it? I'm in Indiana. I'm 4 hours away. And I was like, I'll mail it to you. What's your address? And she's like, oh, how much do you think that cost? I'm like, what's your address? Oh man, like I'm not, you don't need to pay me. Just let me get your card to you. I don't know who you are. I found your card. And she's like, I can't believe you spent a half a day like searching for me, right? Communicating with me, found my card, and now you're going to drive to the post office, spend $20 to overnight it to me. And she's like, this is like restoring my faith in humanity. And I thought, like, yeah, we like need more of that. Like, this lady's so impressed that, but I just don't know any other way. I mean, a task, a project I can serve, right? And she's like, is there anything I could do for you to say thank you? And I said, yeah. I got this fundraiser. I'm trying to raise money to go to Ukraine. I want to go fight with the Foreign Legion. And she's, are you serious? And I said, yeah. And she's like, wow. She's like, yeah, I'll definitely donate to that. Send me the website. I said, yeah. I said, cards in the mail. You know how much she donated?
$0.
$0 fucking dollars. I never heard from her again, you know?
This podcast is brought to you by Be Micro, a company I'm deeply passionate about because I founded it in 2018. It's USDA organic freeze-dried microgreens for everyday nutrition and detox. Sprinkle them on any meal or take them as a capsule to enjoy the many healthy benefits. Shop now at BeMicro.farm. Use code STEVE15 to save. I think people are mixed up about what Ukraine is. And they're like, oh, have their own stories around it. There's a lot of confusion.
Yeah. I think people are dickheads. I think she got her card and she just went back to doing what she was doing. After saying something like, you've restored my faith in humanity, she thinks humanity is there to serve her, right? That was her faith in humanity, was somebody helping her, but never her helping somebody else. But to me, that was this microcosm of what I was seeing. So at that point, I've like, I don't know, it crushed me. I was just like, what's wrong with people? You know? So I'm out. That's when I was really like, you know what? I'm just doing the Foreign Legion. I don't care about all this energy that I'm putting in to convince people to help. I'm just going to go do what I know how to do. I'm going to go bang heads. So I go out there, I go to Ukraine, which is a process. You know, over 7,000 Americans applied to the Foreign Legion, and they only accepted a little over 200.
Really?
And that's because Americans don't do well over there.
Really?
Yeah. We're used to winning all our fights. We don't engage, as Americans, we don't engage unless we outnumber 3-1. You know, we've got air support, we've got medevac. Go ahead, shoot me in the chest, shoot me in the heart. I mean, I've seen a dude get shot through the heart and live like it wasn't even an issue. He's, you know, he's out of the hospital 2 days later. That's America. That's on the battlefield, right? That's not the case in most countries, right? So Americans don't do well because they're used to kind of like always having all the best equipment, everything, and not really getting their ass kicked. You know, in World War II, that's a big war. Only 14% of soldiers in World War II fired their weapon in combat. 86% of soldiers in World War II pretty much never engaged in combat. Only 14%.
That's for the Allies, for all.
Yeah, for the American Army, the U.S. Army. That's World War II. So, you know.
Yeah, if I were to make up a story, I would think that they were all shooting all the time.
At least once, right?
Yeah.
And when you think 86% of our force never actually saw combat.
That's surprising.
It's, right? Well, in, you know, Iraq and Afghanistan, it's like what? It's like 1%, you know, less than 1% fire their weapon or see combat. So when American soldiers go over there, it's like, how much combat you expect? They're like, no, I did 10 years, you know, but I never. So they made this requirement. You had to have viable combat experience that could be verified, viable and verified, right? And so you have to go through this process where they look at your military records, and you have to go through the Ukrainian consulate and embassy in D.C. and then in Ukraine, and they have to accept you. So I kind of felt like honored just to get accepted to this makeshift Foreign Legion, just because I knew apparently there were thousands of people that they said no. And I think, God, what does that say about Americans? If you're struggling to build a force and you don't have the force and you've got 7,000 people that want to come fight and you say no to all of them. So it kind of also became this side thing. I was like, I want to go out there and show them that Americans are cool, like that we're good. So I get up there, I go out there, I make it to Ukraine. They've given you a bunch of information. You meet up at a rally point. You know, you have to go through Poland, you cross through Poland, you get to Ukraine, you basically find your contacts and they put you into a unit. Before you go to the unit, they check your background and ask you some questions. They find out who you are. And so most of the guys that I've started off with go to what they call battalion in the Foreign Legion. It's like your infantry battalion. And that's kind of like where I want to go. That's where I feel like I'm going to do the best, right? But they send me somewhere else. They send me to, they call these GUR units, right? GUR, GUR units. GUR, I don't know, GUR, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah. And they send me to one of these units, and it's their idea of like these kind of crash makeshift special operations units, right? And they have their own training process, like initiation. And so I land on this base, and on the base, I'm in a tent with 10 or 12 other guys, and we're all part of this makeshift special forces unit kind of thing, right? They're, you know, special operations. And I'm old, right? I'm like, look at me, right? Like that's who I am. I show up and a lot of these guys are studs. They're 18, they're 20, and I'm just coming off some injuries. I had a knee issue and a hamstring tear, right, during rugby, right before I got there. I'm beat up. I'm not in the best shape, and these dudes are just kind of looking at me like, this old man's not gonna kick it with us, and so they kind of work me, and I'm not doing so well, right? I'm not impressing them, and there's a lot of ego. There's a lot of machismo, if you will, right? It's like whoever's the toughest, whoever has the biggest genitals is leading this squad, right? Not who's the most intelligent or trained.
Yeah, who's got the most wisdom.
So it's already, I'm kind of like, oh, this is scary. The initiation, what they wanted to see was, if you want to be part of this unit, we have to know that you're not going to be like what we see so often with, especially Americans, is how do you react in combat, like in real combat? So the way they test you, the initiation for this unit, this would never happen in America. We'd never do something like this. They said it's a combat, a disorientation simulator or something. So they have you start off by standing on your feet with your finger on your nose and spinning around as fast as you can until you're so dizzy that you fall over. And they stand you up and they make you spin around to the point where you're nauseous. And then they trip you and they push you over in the mud and they say, go find your rifle. And ahead in 50 meters in front of you is a pile of 10, 15 rifles that all look the same. Mm-hmm. Go get yours. And you low crawl through the mud. They're shooting AK-47s. They're throwing sim grenades. I mean, real like sim grenades that are blowing up in dirt. A guy standing over my back with his legs straddling me, shooting an AK-47 an inch from my ear. The dirt is hitting my face. We would never do that in the USSR. Just dumping rounds, sim grenades. Everybody in the team is throwing rocks at me or snowballs, right? And they're just pelting me. You get your weapon, you load it up, you engage the targets, you get up, you got to run this course, guns up, shooting on the move. I mean, moving and shooting, right? You don't really like shoot while you run, but moving and shooting, reloading, engaging, all this. You got to run this course with your SCAR. That's what they give you. They want you to run it with an AK. You do this like 200-meter bound. You jump into this trench. You like shoot a target. You smoke other targets. You get behind different positions. You shoot. It's just kind of cool, right? Mm-hmm. But the whole time they're just like hammering you with rocks and all this stuff, looking to see how you handle this. I was unfazed. That's not, that's nothing for me. That's fine. It actually makes me focus better, right? Like I'll probably shoot a little bit better because now I'm like, maybe my brain thinks I'm in combat. So, it's like we're ready to go. And so when that happened, all of a sudden these guys that were kind of like, this dude sucks, were like, oh, all right. Actually,
he's solid.
Yeah. He might be okay. He's a little fat. He's a little old. He's a little out of shape, but he might be all right. We go to another training mission. And the guys that are in charge, they're these really cool guys. I don't want to say their names or their code names, but one of them's from New Zealand, right? And I get a little connection with him because, oh, you're from New Zealand? Do you play rugby? He's like, hell yeah, I do. Okay, cool. So let's talk. Little ego-driven, young, convinced that they know everything, right? Whoever does the most push-ups is the smartest, right? So the Ukrainian leadership wants us to put together kind of like a training mission. We're going to assault this bunker. They have these amazing training facilities for trench warfare that we don't have in the U.S. They just dig massive trench structures, and then you can go like raid them, do whatever. So it's really cool. And that's all it is trench warfare. In the U.S. Army, that's like, for 1 week a year, we practice trench warfare. In Ukraine, that's like you're doing it every day. It's kind of scary. So we've got this mission. It's a training mission. The objective is to assault this trench complex, right, and clear it, meaning go in, kill all the bad guys, secure it. And the leadership, my leadership, this guy from New Zealand, comes up with this plan where like we're going to put down these two 240s. Those are medium machine guns. They're going to create suppressive fire on this bunker, and that'll allow this 8-man element. We'll have these two-man machine gun teams. We have these other 8 guys. They will assault the trench. They'll come out of the wood line. They'll throw smoke to conceal their movement. They'll move through the smoke, frag the trench, and they're frag heavy. You go in U.S. we would never throw a frag into a room, right? We throw flashbang, but we don't just blindly frag rooms. Ukraine, it's like frag, wait 10 seconds, frag. So that's the idea, and that's kind of like
a frag is like a grenade.
Yeah, a fragmentation grenade, a hand grenade, right? So I'm like, and everybody's like, yeah, good plan, solid plan, and I'm like, this is not okay. I see a lot of flaws in this plan, But everybody's like, yeah, solid plan. And what scared me was the Ukrainian leadership, the lieutenant and the major were like, yeah, good plan. I'm like, dude, no. And I kind of raised my hand and I'm like, hey, look, I'm like, I get you want to put suppressive fire on this trench complex. It's essentially a bunker, right, with fortified positions. I go, you can't suppress that. They have machine guns and their machine guns are fortified. So they can shoot back, like they can shoot while you're shooting at them. They're protected. You can't suppress. And I said, when you engage them, they're going to return. I said, so you want to move your machine guns to a flank, to a different position, a different azimuth, so that when they engage you, you're not suppressing them, you're drawing fire. You're making them focus all their guns towards those machine guns, right? So that's where they think the enemy comes. Then you've got your assault element. You're flanking up, coming up the trench. Yeah, totally, that's right. You don't throw smoke out of the woods to conceal your movement. That's what we do in movies. If I'm on a machine gun and I see a bunch of smoke, I'm just going to turn my machine gun over there and start hammering, right? I'm like, what you do in this situation is, as long as you're not being engaged and you're drawing fire, if you're not being engaged, that means they don't see you. So just keep that concealment, right? It may not be covered, but keep that concealment. When you get up to that trench, throw those smoke grenades in the trench. Use it on them. That'll create disorientation. Throw the smoke grenades in the trench. Then they can't see. If they shoot at the smoke, they're shooting themselves. But now they're fucked, right? Throw the smoke grenades in the trench, then frag it. Then let's go clear that smoky trench, and they look at me and they're like, shut up, old man, you don't know what you're talking about. So we run this mission. That went exactly as I said, right? I mean, the entire team got smoked when they threw out white smoke. The machine guns turned, everybody's dead, right? They weren't able to suppress. They were trying to suppress, so they had their machine guns basically shooting over their attack element. And it's like, so the fire you're drawing onto your assault element. You're making them shoot at where we're coming from. Like, I don't get this. To me, this is like infantry tactics 101. This is, I can't believe we're doing stuff like that. So we run this mission. Everybody dies, dies, right? It's a training mission. And then we do our AAR, after action review. And they're like, what does everybody think? And they're like sitting there patting themselves on the back, looking at the videos. Everything's on video, right? Because it's 2023. And they're like, oh, look here, look how I, did this, check out this leap I did into the trench. And it's like, dude, this is, it's not what we're focused on. This is we reset 3 times. Like, we're all dead, right? This is unsuccessful. And so I say, here's why. And I give my list, kind of reiterate the things. And I'm like, point here, and the Ukrainian major is just like, dude, shut up. You're not in charge. Wow. And real quick, I'm like,
I'm going to die here.
Yeah. And I came to the conclusion, I'm willing to die for a cause I believe in. They'd say, oh, you have sons, or you have 3 boys. And I'd be like, yeah, well, Ukraine's got 3 million boys, right? Like I'm willing to die, but I'm not willing to throw my life away. It's different, right? I'm willing to die for a cause that I think I'm impacting and making a difference. I'll do that, but I'm not just going to kill myself so that you can bring another. Yeah. So this has become, now I'm really concerned. At the same time, I'm applying to this job. It's a contract. It's a company I signed an NDA with, so I can't say anything, but it's a diplomatic security contract. They provide security for diplomats overseas, and I've always wanted to do this contract, right? It's kind of like a Blackwater type thing. And I've always wanted to work for this company. And I was in the hiring process when I went to Ukraine, and they send me an email, and they said, hey, we're now starting to initiate the final part of your security clearance. They're aware I'm in Ukraine, and they said, you won't pass your security clearance if you're out there. So you kind of have to make a decision. Do you want this job, or do you want to, fight in the Foreign Legion in Ukraine? I said, can I get back to you in a week? Let me think about this. And they're like, yeah. You got till, whenever, and, the end of April or something. That's when we're going to drop your packet. So now I'm kind of like, man, I'm out here. I'm not feeling like I have the ability to make a difference. I need a voice. I need a voice. If I were put in charge, sure, I feel like I can make a difference. But nobody's going to put me in charge. I'm old. I got gray in my chin. I'm a little overweight, right? It's just not, they're all ego driven, right? So I'm starting to get disconcerted. An event happens on base, and I don't want to get into the specifics, but there's some corruption going on. There's a little bit of, I think, money missing, some things that were promised to certain people and it wasn't happening. And there's kind of like this revolt on the base where all these guys that are part of the Schuyler unit that are like special operations, if you will, say, we don't want to be on this. We're done. We're moving east. We're moving east, and we're just going to go find a unit that's out there, that's active, and we're just going to link up with them. But, they don't even have, rifles, because the rifles are like, distributed from the training thing. So it's like you're just like hopping on a train and like you're just going to push east and hope to find a unit and then just start working with them. And some of these guys have contacts, they know people, and it seems kind of feasible. And I'm just like, man, this is really like everything's kind of falling apart. I'm not liking this. Well, so they do this like mutiny and they leave the base. Well, I can either go with them or I can stay on base as the only guy left from this group. So I go with them. I'm like, I'm going to go. Hey, whatever, at least they're going to the action, right? Maybe I'll figure something out. And this was the final straw. I go out with some of these guys. We're in Lviv at the time. And we go out, we're military guys. You want to go out and have some beers, right? Go out and have some beers. You might be going to war tomorrow, like go out and celebrate. And so we go out and, I'm not a big drinker. I currently don't drink now, but at that point I wasn't a big drinker. But these guys are, and they're getting hammered. And they're out on the street and they're messing with civilians. They're like picking on old people, talking smack, making people get out of my way, kind of like, dude, that's the type of person that I'm here to get rid of. That's the problem. I'm not here to pick on, like, these are the people we're protecting, and they're out and they're clearly part of the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, and they're making a bad, they're seeing these guys act like that. And I'm just like, dude, I'm so discouraged from this. So that night, I kind of have this revelation. I reach back out to the Diplomatic Security Service contract company, and I say, hey, I think I'm going to come back to the States. I think this is what I want to do. So I come back and I get hired and I go train. So I put all this work, like a year of fundraising and effort into getting to Ukraine, and I did it, and I got there, and I killed 0 Russians. I saw no combat. We got hit with like a cruise missile by the base once, but that's just, that's not direct, right? I wasn't. And so I feel like a failure, right? Like I had this dream, this vision. And if anything, this may sound like, sadistic or whatever, but like I wanted to engage Russians in combat, I wanted to go out there and be like, I got rid of at least one bad guy. And I didn't. So I just I feel like this failure. And I had a bunch of donors that sent me cool gear, right? Some of the stuff I was able to leave with the Ukrainians. Here's some body armor, here's some med stuff. Some of the stuff, because of ATARs and U.S. regulations, you can't leave out of country. It's sensitive items, so I had to bring it back to the States. And I kind of have to give it back to these guys that paid for it or donated it to me. Like, hey, thanks for donating this night vision, but I didn't get to use it, so here it is, whatever you want to do with it. And I felt so bad because I had so much support from some individuals, and I felt almost like I let them down too, right? And so that was hard, but no time to feel bad for yourself, right? Boom.
And all you can do is the best you can do.
I get hired by this cool company. I get to go to Kasadik, which is the King Abdullah Special Operations Training Center out in Jordan, and I go through this awesome course with this protective security service it's a WIPS 3 certification. It means Worldwide Protective Services. Basically, it's a Department of State contract, but Department of State has its requirements, its standards, and they hire people to get trained. And to get to go to Kasadik, I'd always seen about it. I was just regular infantry in the Army. I wasn't like a Green Beret, so I never got to go to Kasadik, this legendary training facility in Jordan. So to go there and train was awesome. Day one, it's like, all right, grab your machine gun. We're dumping 10,000 rounds. Day two, like grab your rifle. We're just doing small unit tactics. We're shooting machine guns. We're doing driving schools, offensive driving, evasion, driving at night with no night vision, no headlights in pursuit. Like, it is awesome. I was like, man, I kind of feel like James Bond. Like, this is cool. I think it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to send people through these courses. So I'm like, wow, okay. Ukraine didn't work out, but I'm moving towards something cool. I'm gonna find something to do. I get back from training. I'm waiting on my first contract. Oh, I'm in the process of going through a divorce. When I went to Ukraine, my wife at the time had me sign a power of attorney, which, you need that because, I might die. Yeah. As soon as I landed in Ukraine, she took the power of attorney, sold my car. Don't know what she did with the money, right? We were already on rocky terms, so that was like final straw. So I get back from Ukraine, file for divorce, right? I go to Jordan. I come back from Jordan. I'm trying to battle this divorce, and I care about my kids and all this stuff. And my lawyer points out to me, hey man, what are you going to do about your kids? You're trying to be this, like, you're trying to go do this overseas work. You realize, like, if that's your job, you're not going to get your kids. You're going to lose that custody battle. And I'm like, man, so now I got to make a decision. chase this kind of like this dream, this thing that I've always wanted, this life. It's here, it's in front of me, it's tangible. But I got to give up on my children or navigate this divorce, deal with this, work with my kids. And I'm like, man, well, I find out, I realize there's this thing called, that this contract is for the Diplomatic Security Service. That's State Department. The Diplomatic Security Service has this job. It's called a DSS SA, a DSS Special Agent. So it's kind of like, like how an FBI is a special agent. They have an 18 series nomenclature. Same thing with these guys. And I start looking at it, and it's a cool job. Anybody who listens to this podcast should check it out. It's a really cool job. And I'm like, dude, I want to do that. And it's the type of job that I can do and win custody of my kids. So here I am, I'm in like shifting another gear. But it's a hard job to get. It takes about a year, maybe 18 months to get hired, lots of testing and stuff. It's a federal agent position. And I'm like, man, I want to do this. This might work out. So I start that process of applying to do that job while I'm going through this divorce. I have to turn down my first contract, with this company, to the one I signed an NDA with. I have to turn down my first contract because I'm going through this divorce. I can't do it. So I end up not deploying. Again, mentally, I'm in that same thing. Like, oh shit, this is a failure again. I go through. I complete all the training for this DSS SA job. It's mathematical. It's reasoning, testing. I mean, physical stuff. They got you on the running machine with the EKG and monitoring. Your heart rate. They test you for G6DP deficiencies. Like so much physical testing, so much mental testing. The hardest tests I've ever taken. Harder than anything I took in school, like really hard tests. Proctored, you hold your ID. If you want to go to the bathroom, you have to raise your hand. You can't say anything. They come, tap you on the shoulder. You hold your ID and walk in front of the camera, and you stand at the urinal with your ID up to verify that you have never left, it's never been a different person. You've never left proctoring. You've always been observed. And I'm like, this is like kind of cool, hardcore stuff, right? Kind of like James Bond. And I'm able to pass. I'm passing all my stuff. I pass my written, stuff. I reasoning, and I'm kind of like a year into the hiring process. And now it's the last step is the board of examiners, and that's where you walk into like this boardroom, and they're all sitting around this table, and they ask you questions. They kind of want to like beat you up and see how you respond. It's nerve-wracking for me, and they say dress to impress. Come out to Chicago, dress to impress. So I order this suit. This sweet suit. I ordered off Amazon because I'm broken. I don't know anything about suits. Well, it arrives late. It arrives the night before I'm supposed to have this interview, this final awesome thing. It's like 10 sizes too big.
Oh,
Dude,
no.
it's not wearable,
So
but I was counting on it. Yeah. So I'm like, well, I'm going to wear the pants because all I own are shorts. I mean, I don't know if you can see how I'm dressed now, but that's how I dress, right? So I've got these pants. They come up to my chest, and I've got a belt wrapped around my chest, right? So that I have these pants. And I'm like, what am I going to wear on the top? I can't wear this giant suit jacket. I look it's ridiculous. So I get this sweater, but it's kind of faded, and I put it over a collared shirt. So I've got this sweater, but I've got the pants up here, and you can kind of see the belt buckle in here. I'm like, this is not going to fly. Yeah. But I can't reschedule. If you reschedule, if you don't show up, it's it. Yeah. Hell, they're so strict. When you respond in emails, they'll say things in every email. They'll be like, oh, please put a heading like this. Please please forward this first to here before. If you don't complete any of that, you're dropped. If they say, hey, respond to this email at this address, but first forward it to this one, and you do it in reverse order, all of a sudden you're dropped from a year of evaluation out the window, right? And that's the point they're making is this is serious stuff, attention to detail. Yeah. So I go there. I got this ridiculous suit. I take the train up in Chicago. I get there. It's time for me to do my interview. Mr. Nippert, go sit in this room. We'll be with you. I go in this room. It's kind of like an intimidating room. It's all like gray walls. Nothing. No windows. There's a door with no handle. I'm locked in this room. I can't leave. It's got no handle. I can enter it. And I'm just sitting in there. There's one chair. There's nobody in there, right? And there's a camera in the corner, like a security camera focused right on me. The only thing in this room, there's 3 pictures on the wall. The President of the United States in a frame picture, President Biden. The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. And the Secretary of State, Anthony Lincoln, right? Or Anthony Blinken, right? and the picture of the president is crooked, really crooked. Like, and I'm like one of those guys. I've already looked at all the pictures in your room, and I'm happy that they're straight because I would have gotten up and changed them. And I'm like, and I'm looking at this camera looking at me, and I'm like, dude, this is a test. They want to see who fixes this picture, right? I go, it's got to be. We're like, why do they have a camera in this room? Why is this the only thing in here? I'm like, I'm supposed to fix this picture, right? And I'm like thinking about it. I'm in my head because I'm stressed out. This is the culmination of everything. I got to fix this picture. So I get up there. I go to tilt it, and it falls off the wall. The picture of the president of the United States falls off the wall, hits the picture of the vice president, which falls and hits the picture of the secretary of state, and they all hit the ground and smash, and the frame's broken, and glass goes everywhere. And then the door opens, and this guy sticks out. What the hell is going on in here? And here's my belt. I can feel my heart beating through my belt wrapped around my chest underneath my... So it's time for my interview, dude, and I'm just like, this could not go anywhere. No, and I smoked it. I crushed it, and I got a passing. I was a first-time go, which I think that's a good thing to complete everything. Be a first-time go. Dude, I'm like, whatever my like, I'm just like on cloud nine, and all of a sudden they're sending me things. This is such a professional organization. All the interaction with email and stuff is just unreal. And I'm like, I can't wait to go work for these guys. This is like, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. Because, I've always wanted to be this kind of warrior guy, but I feel like one of my skills is communication. That's almost what I'm best at. Well, that's what diplomatic security service, the most important thing to me is national security. And I believe you would obtain national security through diplomacy, right? So, and that's who I am. I'm like, this is my job. This is what I'm supposed to do. So I'm pumped. Well, the last thing you do, you have to get a security clearance, but you also have to get what's called a suitability determination. And this is where they just verify that there's nothing in your record that means that you can't do this job. I don't get my suitability determination. I get a letter back from the Department of State. And at this time, I should backtrack. I'm in my office. I'm watching, I think I was like watching CNN or something. I'm watching stuff on Ukraine. And Antony Blinken comes out. He's Secretary of State. And he's playing the bass guitar, singing Rockin' in the Free World. He's in Ukraine, and he's playing Rockin' in the Free World on bass guitar, because that's something he does. And he's saying, Ukraine's part of the free world. The U.S. will always support you. We're allies. The U.S. is with you forever. We believe in this conflict. We're here to support you. And I'm like, I love this guy, right? I'm like, I can't wait to be part of the Department of State, working for Diplomatic Security Service. I'm like, this is awesome. Dude, while I'm watching this Antony Blinken play this bass guitar and talk about Ukraine, my email goes off. Boom, there it is. I recognize. I'm like, oh, this is my thing. This is the last step. Here I go. I get my suitability determination, and then I'm off to the academy. You've been denied. Heartbreaking. What? They have to give you a reason. I got denied because they felt I was at risk or I wasn't suitable because I went and supported a foreign government. I volunteered to fight for a foreign government in Ukraine. And that makes me risk. That shows that I may not have loyalty or allegiance to the United States. And they dropped me. At the same time, I'm watching the guy the person who's in charge of this in Ukraine saying, dude, I'm like, what is going on here, right? So that was kind of like the end of that. No, I get to write an appeal, right? I did this long appeal, and I thought it was great. It was about 17 pages. And they said, hey, this is great work, but we regret to inform you, it lacks the burden of proof. You've said all this stuff, but you haven't proven whatever you still went to Ukraine. So you're dropped, but they're like, you can reapply in 2 years if you want. And I'm like, dude. So I'm about to come up on that 2-year mark. Since then, I've stayed in the security industry. And I'm coming up on that 2-year mark, and I'm like, I'm not giving up that easy, right? So in May of this year, I get to apply again. And I'm like, I'm not giving up that easy. So I said, what can I do to make me better for this job, to make me a better candidate? I thought Ukraine made me a good candidate. Apparently it didn't. So I got into investigations, because that's primarily what these guys do. They're federal agents. They investigate crimes.
Like detectives?
Yeah, a lot of stuff with passport fraud, but they only work overseas, right? They don't work in the U.S. So I'm like, I should become an investigator. So that's what I do. I go and get a job as an investigator. I go through some training, and for the last 2 years, I've been an investigator. I hate it. It's awful. I mean, there's some cool stuff, right? It's cool following people around. Sometimes it's cool solving cases, finding information, hammering dirt bags, right? Getting them out. But it's also civilian. It's not any law enforcement investigation. So it's like, it might be something like missing persons or stuff, but it's a lot of domestic stuff. A lot of like, I think my wife's cheating on me. Can you find out? It's not really rewarding. I do some other work, contract with like insurance company type stuff, people that are hustling, running fake workman's comp scams or whatever. I investigate those, So I feel like I'm pulling dirt bags off the street. But I've been doing that for 2 years just to make myself a better candidate kind of for this dream job. So that's where I'm at in the security world, and investigations and stuff like that. I hope that 90 minutes summed up.
Yeah, that was great.
Sorry,
that was
Sorry.
great. I mean, you're a great speaker. You have a lot to say. What's coming up for me is, what is the state of Ukraine today?
Okay, so they're hurting. I think they've got support. The world's on their side, but that it doesn't matter if the world supports you. It really matters if the key players support you, right? And one of those is the U.S. And I think the people in the U.S. support. I mean, I don't understand how you can support Russia. That's so weird to me, right? How can you support an invading force that rapes, murders, tortures, dismembers? For no reason. Like, how can you get behind that? I don't think anybody's behind it. But it's like, they're like, oh, well, that doesn't mean we should save money. That doesn't mean we should help Ukraine because that costs us money, Oh, we give them $50 billion. Look, we got 300 million people, right? What is $50 billion? What does that cost 300 million people, right? A couple bucks, right? Like 10, 20 bucks a year. Like, if you don't have 20 bucks to save an entire country, I don't know. I have an opinion about you, right? Whatever. So I think that's a problem, is that Ukraine has support, but it doesn't have it. It doesn't matter if everyone in America supports Ukraine. It only matters if the guy writing the check supports Ukraine. So I think they're fearful, and Ukraine's fearful that they're going to lose some funding from the U.S. There's a lot of threats about that. I hope, right? I want to say I have faith, but can't rely on that. I really do hope that the people in the U.S. are able to express the importance of that Ukraine wins this conflict. If Russia wins, not only does that create threat to NATO, not only does that all these horrible atrocities happen, but it sends a message to the allies of Russia that they're strong, that they're powerful. If Russia is defeated by Ukraine, with nothing other than some financial support and some assistance, that sends a message that Russia's not that powerful, right? They're not. And that's an important message to send to Russian allies that are potentially enemies of us. Let's just say we got Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, all together. That's their team, right? It looks like a Dick Tracy novel, like all the bad guys. We got all the clowns together, right? They're running this evil regime or whatever. They're allies. If one of their strongest allies ever gets defeated by a country like Ukraine, if Iran launches its motherlode, just shoots the motherlode of drones and missiles, the Armageddon, and they don't kill a single Israeli, what does that say about that team, right? Now all of a sudden, like, North Korea's like, well, it would just be me. And China's smart enough to be like, I can't, I don't have if those are my allies, I need a different team, right? So by winning in Ukraine, and what I consider a defeat, in a way, Israel defeating Iran, just showing that you can't harm us, it says to China, hey, you need to negotiate with us, right? If there is a World War III, you're not going to win, right? Your two biggest allies can't even can't even complete simple tasks, right? So these are important conflicts to win, I think, because they really do not just prevent a world war, because no one's going to start a world war unless they think they can win it, right? Unless they think they can benefit from it. So if you kind of say it's unwinnable, that's a really important message for deterrence. The other one is, if you defeat these allies of, we could argue, our enemies, I think the most important place we need to look right now is China. That puts them in a position where they have to negotiate with us. And back to what I was saying, national security is the most important thing to me. Diplomacy is how you build that. You don't build security by killing people. You build it through deterrence. You build it through cooperation. You know, if I want you to never harm me, I can build a fence around you. I can point a gun at you, right? I can threaten you, or I could just make you my family, right? My best friend, and then we're. That's the approach I think we need with China. But we kind of have to bring them to the table, and the way to do that is to defeat their allies. And defeat doesn't mean kill the most. It just means you failed to do your objective. You've lost, right? You scored 1 touchdown. We scored 30 touchdowns. We won, whatever. So I think that that's really important. And Ukraine is struggling. They're running out of people. When you go out there, there's not men in the street, right? It's really sad. There's not. They're running out of people. And some of their tactics, I think, puts them in a position where they're not going to, they're not retaining people because they have really poor tactics. I don't think there's a more important conflict for our country or the world to be involved in and pay attention to than Ukraine. It's not as simple as just Ukraine. When I was there, I'm helping. I want to be there to help Ukrainians, but I also want to be there to help the world and the United States, right? And this is a conflict that if Russia wins that and the U.S. allows Russia to win that, that's a really bad message to send to our enemies. And so I think the consequences are a lot greater than people understand. This war, Ukraine has to win this. If it doesn't, it's going to get worse quick.
And how's this war being fought? On the news, I see a lot of drones and trench warfare.
Yeah, I mean, it's evolving. It's constantly evolving. When I was in Iraq, I got to see this amazing invention be created. They called it a Rhino. On a Humvee, they're blowing you up. You drive by, a roadside bomb hits you. So they have this arm. They built this arm that lowers in front of the Humvee, and they put an ammo can on it with 2 glow plugs, basically spark plugs for a diesel engine. They ran a cord to it. They heat up. Well, this creates a heat signature in front of the Humvee. So when you pass by this roadside bomb that's usually victim triggered, it's a passive IR. This heat element in front causes the bomb to blow up just 10 feet in front of the Humvee. Mm-hmm. Well, they're directional. You're not killed, right? Really cool. Like this wasn't a thing. This was invented by a PFC on my base on Rustamiyah in Iraq. He said, "I've got an idea. Let's create this and put it on our Humvees." Well, saves thousands of lives, right? Mm-hmm. So the enemy starts angling. They go, oh, all these things are 10 feet long, so let's angle all our charges, this many degrees to the left, and then it'll kill, right? So now we're back. Now it's not working. Okay, well, we make shorter ones. So he says, well, let's make them adjustable. So they become adjustable arms. And before every mission, you put on a random length, 10 feet, 7 feet, 3 feet, right? So the enemy can't adapt. They'll still get some kills, but they're going to, it can't adapt, right? What I'm learning from that is this evolving, the battlefield's evolving, right? That sums up Ukraine. That's exactly what's going on. Weekly, if not daily, the battlefield is evolving. A tactic that is super high casualty producing and the most effective tactic, and it's the go-to, that won't be the case a month later. And it's trial and error. They try something, doesn't work, try something else. We found something, it works. This is what we're doing. We're hammering them. Well, they counter it. They find, now we've got to find something else. Both sides are doing that. Russia had a plan. Russia's doctrine's been the same for 50 years. Heavy artillery, launch heavy artillery, ground and pound, right? Send in the infantry. That's just how they do it. 230 millimeter mortars. I've never seen that in the U.S. Army, right? It didn't work. It didn't work. Their plan that they've used for the last 50, 60 years in combat, they went into that with Ukraine, and they got their asses handed to them by a bunch of untrained guys with javelins, right? So they had to create a new tactic. They start bringing in drones, right? Foreign fighters. They're using psychological warfare. So now there's this counter drone stuff. I mean, that when I was training in Ukraine, I was primarily doing drone operations, right? Surveillance drones. That was our job. But the drones aren't designed for combat. So they're evolving on the battlefield weekly, and Ukraine or the enemy is countering with new inventions. I mean, it's amazing. But that's what it is. So there's not a tactic. It's just fully, it's a living, breathing evolution of doctrine. which is cool, to see. The future, I think you win technology. It's technology. It's ingenuity that's going to win this battle, or a lot. It's going to win a lot of the battles. That costs money, right? You need tech costs money. So,
how do you see AI playing a role? It seems like war is the main driver of AI.
it's scary, right? I mean, you saw Terminator, right? Terminator. We grew up on that. It was almost kind of like a joke, but here we are. I think that AI, it's going to be. I mean, it's already massive, but it's just as we learn. I mean, let's sum up AI as an ability to. When we talked about intelligence, I was saying it's like the ability to understand information and then apply it. Well, what AI is the ability to understand a lot more information faster and apply it quicker, right? That's what computers allow us to do. And I think AI is constantly going to evolve, but what's important is to see how it's applied. And at some point it gets applied to everything. Soon it becomes autonomous in the sense that the decisions are being made essentially from a mathematical formula, an algorithm that makes the best decision. And I hate to say it, I think that'll defeat the people, right? But it has to evolve that way. So I see AI playing less of a factor in like less of this robot out there shooting guns and more of a way to analyze data, really to track things and to find troop movements, locations, but allow an artificial robot essentially to do it for you. So it can do it faster, quicker, and they're going to let it run its own fire missions, its own bombing missions, whatever. Not as a vehicle, I'm talking as like a brain, right? And I think it's just people are going to be at the point where they're pressing buttons like saying, fire missions, okay, now ground and pound. Okay, now let's do medevac, and they're going to be letting the AI kind of coordinate all aspects of the battlefield. I don't know.
Have you been following the company Anduril at all?
No, not really.
That's a Lucky Palmer company. He was the inventor of Oculus Rift, sold
yeah.
that for billions of dollars to Facebook, and now is one of the first billionaires to start an arms company.
Wow.
And his thing is Atlas, I think is what he calls his AI, but he's able to connect his AI into all of the different systems. There's all these disparate systems. There's 100 companies or 10 companies making missiles and ships and all that, and none of them are communicating. So how does he bring them all together? And he just launched a headset that went pretty viral. It's kind of Call of Duty style.
Yeah.
You saw some of that?
I did that. Now I'm starting to understand a little bit. Kind of like the heads-up display where you're able to see real-life battlefield integration, but you can almost be remote or you can be there. So you can be on the battlefield having like overlays and amplified stuff, or you can be remote but observing that battlefield in real time. It's amazing stuff. But what you said about him bringing everything together, that's essential for function, right? That's how you make a product or a system that works, but it's also how you make your biggest weakness and threat. Once everything's together, like once one brain's in charge, you only have to corrupt that brain, right? If you have a king, if you have a monarchy, all you have to do is whisper in the king's ear. So I think my big fear is look at what happens with server outage. Cloudflare recently, the Amazon Workspace or web services before that, right? They go down and it affects 20% of the globe. What if everybody were on the same server, just one? What if everything was integrated? Well,
the whole army goes down.
Exactly, right? And so those are some of the fears that I see with AI is not how does it evolve to attack us, hurt us, whatever. No. How does it evolve to become endangered? You lose security, right? If you have an NFL team and you only have one quarterback, if he gets injured, that's the end of your team, right? So you need these backups. And then what's our backup, right? That's the problem I see. But everything else I see good. I mean, AI is just going to make everything whatever you apply it to. It just makes it faster, more efficient, right? And kind of puts it, the human factor allows you to trust your gut, make a decision, but it also brings in emotion, right?
What's your boundary with AI?
I mean, I don't have a boundary. I don't work directly with any AI.
I mean, when there's iPhone 30 comes out and they're like, okay, we're plugging this right into your brain.
Yeah, so I think that it has to be a decision socially. People have to identify it, and I want to move like not so much AI, but just technology, right? Like screens in our face, right? All of this, whichever way it goes, it's taking more of us, right? I think we kind of have to like tone it down and remove it. And that has to be, the world has to want to do that. All the people, all the kids.
We seem to have an insatiable appetite for the newest technology,
Yes.
and
Yep.
there doesn't seem to be a line for
Yeah.
society.
Yeah, and I worry about that. There's this cool cartoon show my son put me onto, Attack on Titan. Right, this is whatever. It's like this anime thing. It was really big for a while. Super gory. So, but my son's like, you got to watch this. It's cool. We watch it. Whatever. But there's this thing, and it's this super technologically advanced society. Mechanically, they have amazing technology with mechanics, but they have no electricity. So they lack. They don't have any computers, really any communication, any phones. But they have all these really cool mechanics that work without electricity. I mean, they don't explain it so well, but there's this kind of like part of this show where you're seeing how does society function. The one thing they don't have is social media and phones and all of that, but they're super advanced and it's in the future. I feel like we need to move somewhere like that. We have to make a decision as a society. Hey, we need to pull the plug on this because the dangers that it's bringing are too real. Yeah, we have fun. We get all this stuff. What we get is just like pleasure and efficiency and whatever. We need to make a decision to pull this plug. And humans aren't going to make that decision. Humans can't even make the decision to feed themselves healthy food, right? To actually, I'm dying. I don't know what's wrong with me.
More pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, right. My arm hurts. Oh, fix your arm. No, I'm not going to fix it. I'll just take a painkiller, right?
give me statins.
Hey, you're going to die in 6 months if you don't stop smoking. I guess I'm going to die. Right? It's just, that's who we are. I mean, people are like, they're dying just because they know they're dying, right?
And Americans more than most.
Yeah, at a crazy rate. I mean,
share about the veterans and their health.
Yeah, so, we were talking about that earlier. Vets are, this is a crazy stat, super important. We were talking about vets are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than the average, male vets, than the average male person, right? 4 times. And you can kind of crunch these numbers a little bit. They're 4 times more likely, in certain aspects, but whatever. If veterans are 4 times more likely to commit suicide, that's big, right? So we say why. And everybody automatically goes to PTSD, war, combat.
Yeah, they saw their friends
Yeah.
die, and they've got a billion bombs
Understandable.
drop
They
on
go
them.
through all this combat. They're 4 times, it's terrible. So
They lived in hell.
But the reality is 80% of veterans who commit suicide never saw combat at all. And 50% of those who commit suicide never even left the country. Even on a peaceful deployment, never left the country.
Wow.
So it's not PTSD. It's not combat. I mean, right there, if 80% of the ones killing themselves never left the country, it's not combat. In fact, if you crunch those numbers right, you could almost argue that if they saw combat, they're actually less likely to kill themselves. And that's kind of it seems to be a real statistic. If you were in intense combat, you might be about 10% less likely to kill yourself than if you didn't at all. So whatever's causing them to kill themselves is in combat, right? I mean, that's just the reality because veterans are still 4 times more likely. So what is it? And so I really think when we look at what all vets share in common, it's just the military, right? And I think more than anything, it's this sense of identity. You are part of something, a team. You come home from Thanksgiving, you're a hero. People ask you what you're doing, you're the man.
I'm doing hero stuff.
Yeah. And all of a sudden that stops when you get out.
Wow.
Right? So your entire identity, everything you've built is gone. And now, not only is it gone, but you're kind of behind because whatever, you've been in the Army or the Marines for 10 years, now you're not. So you're not surrounded by the people you know. And the last 10 years, everybody else has been working in the civilian world, accruing talent, right? A status. And so now you're the lowest rank too, right? You went from being in charge to being a subordinate. And none of your peers show anything. So at the same time, these people tend to turn to drugs and alcohol, right? alcohol is a depressant, straight up. I mean, and in the military, you're forced to drink. That's part of your indoctrination. You drink every day. You drink until you're blacked out, and you go run 5 miles. That's how we get it by. So you add that in there. That creates a factor for depression right there, right? And then one of the biggest factors, I think more than anything, physiological change. You go from working out every day, mandatory, 5 days a week minimum, sometimes 7, depending on your unit, working out, running 5 miles every morning, going to the gym later, every day to done, stop, no more working out.
No one's making you do it.
At all, right? Oh, here, take this. In fact, let's just replace that workout with some Jack Daniels. Physiological, that is a recipe for depression. So you add in, lack of exercise, change, right? Increased cortisol, lack of identity, right? And then an adjustment, a change, right, in your environment,
behind.
All that stuff. Well, there's
Putting a bunch of poison
there's
in the
the
mix, too.
answer to your suicide. But if you keep saying that it's combat and you keep treating it like combat, you're never going to fix that. And those things there are shared by all veterans, And then also I think, I forgot where I was going to go.
So you shared that one good off ramp is taking advantage of the what's it called, where you can get a college education for free?
The GI Bill, right?
GI Bill,
it has different names, Chapter 30, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, just
Most
the
people
GI
know
Bill.
so the GI Bill, the government will actually pay for your university and pay you to go there.
Yeah, so they completely cover tuition, every aspect, books, everything.
For
Completely
4
covered.
years, or share more about for those that don't know.
It's essentially for 36 months. And so that would be 4 years if you didn't go to summer school. It would be 3 years if you went, to summer school. So it's 36 months of education. And you can tweak it to get a little bit more out of it. So they pay the education. It's paid for. Whether you go to Harvard, whether you go to University of Colorado, whether you go to Front Range Community, they're paying the whole thing. You get
It could be $50,000. It could be $150,000.
Exactly.
Whatever you get into, wherever you want to go, we're paying.
Paid.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Could be private. Could be public.
anywhere.
Wow.
Doesn't even have to be in the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good deal, right?
That's a very good deal.
You could argue it's $1 million deal. On top of that, they want you to focus on your studies. They don't want you to be stressed with working or struggling for housing. So they give you a monthly stipend, which is essentially the equivalent of whatever a E5, a sergeant, makes while they're in the military, right? So it's E5 pay. But E5 pay, I was able to raise a family of like 3 or 4 on that, right? So they're giving you a full paycheck while you're going to school, and that's your only job.
And less than 10% of veterans are taking advantage of that?
93% of veterans don't even attain a bachelor's. Most of them go to school for a month and just drop out. Like we talked about, I can't deal with all these kids. They're all a bunch of young kids. I'm a badass, blah, blah, blah. Some of that statistic comes from veterans forwarding that benefit to their children. That's a benefit you can forward to your children.
Oh, wow.
But, if you got all this military training, you got all this information, you're trying to, here's a way to transition, here's some education. I would argue that, college degree doesn't really get you a job because you got no experience, right? Work gets you, that's the majority of your resume. But I feel the best resume is, a decade of hard work, maybe a decade of military background, and whatever, a decade or half a decade of education. You put all that together, you're the man, right? And there's a path for it. If you come out of the military, you got one checked off, right?
If a veteran's like, okay, fine, I go to university, but I don't know what to study. I'm not sure what I'm interested in.
Exactly. Open major, liberal arts, you'll figure it out. I mean, I started, at first I applied as chemical engineering. I figured out that wasn't for me right away. And then I was open, and then I went psychology. By third semester, I knew what I wanted to do or what I wanted to study.
So you have a lot of leadership training and experience. What's some of the best advice that you have received around leadership?
The best advice that I was ever given, I was on an airplane, and I was traveling somewhere. Somehow I got first class, right? I'm not a first class guy. I'm broke all the time, but whatever. My seat got upgraded. I'm in first class. And I'm sitting next to this guy, just a wonderful guy, older gentleman, probably 75, 80. But he kind of reeks of money. Not like this guy's flashy. It's just, you can just tell. I'm wondering who is this guy? What's he the CEO of? And we're talking, he's asking me about, I'm in the military time, and he's telling me, thank you for your service and stuff like that. We're talking about life, and I'm saying how I'm thinking about going to college. And he says, let me give you a piece of advice. This is the best piece of advice that anybody can ever get. I swear this is the most important thing. And I knew that it was going to be. And he says, the most important thing you can ever do for yourself, like if your goal is success, however you define that, right? Whether it's money or accomplishment, if your goal is success, the best thing you can do for yourself is find a mentor, right? Because mentors are already successful. They've already put this pathway. But they will show you everything. And if you find them when they're in the process of still doing whatever their legacy is, whatever they do, at some point, it's no longer about them. They've completed what they're going to do. And the only way for them to live, to continue their legacy, is through you. They now, live vicariously through you, but they more define their success by the accomplishments that you're able to have. Mm-hmm. So not only do you have this amazing instructor, this platform, but you have this support channel, somebody who's already made it that will basically make their new life goal to make sure that you make it. So if you find a mentor, you're almost guaranteed success. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that to be true in sports, in the military, in school, in life. And we can have multiple mentors, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like...
What do you think is the key to being a good mentee? Someone that a mentor wants to work with?
Well, for facilitating it, I think communication is the most important, right? You have to communicate. You have to be a good listener, not just a good speaker, but a good listener. And you have to be able to work with someone where you can, your ideas can be well received. I think part of it is it's less of a specific and more of a connection between two people. I believe this is true with therapy. I believe it's true if you're mentoring someone, if you're hiring somebody. Just the way a patient has to choose their therapist, right? Is this guy, can I work with him or her? The therapist has to pick the patient, right? There's some people, the therapist is like, I can't help this person. They're not going to listen to me, right? And so I think that finding a connection where there's a communication, there's an ability to, you have that connection prior, I think that's the best foundation. But other than that, I don't think there's anything you can do. If you're a good leader, you'll be a good mentor, right? If you're a good listener, you'll be a good mentee.
And what's coming up for me is coachable.
Yes. So I always telling my kids, they struggle sometimes in sports. They come to conflict and they're like, oh, I wish I were faster. I wish this whatever. And I'd say, like, as a coach, what I want more than anything, I care less about talent. I want the coachability. There's no greater skill than to be able to receive information and execute. I don't want the fastest guy. I want the guy who does what I tell him. Not because I'm in charge, not because it's an authority thing, but if he does, if we listen, if we work together, if he listens to me, he's going to get faster. He's going to get quicker. He's going to jump higher, right? He's going to perform better. He's going to learn the playbook, right? So I want players that are coachable. Same thing with the military, right? I don't want people who, I can't coach, because then you gotta get rid of them. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, Be Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded Be Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the U.S. to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the U.S. in soil in a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1-week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the U.S. without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
How do you describe your leadership style?
So one of the most cliche things is people say lead from the front, right? And I think that defining leadership is important. So just real quick, when you talk to a general or something, what's the leadership? I'm the general, I'm a leader, I'm the captain, I'm an officer in the military, I'm the leader, I'm the coach of the football team, I'm the leader, I'm Bill Belichick, I'm the leader. No, you're not. Sorry, generals. Generals are not leaders. Officers in the military are not leaders. Coaches of football teams are not leaders because they're not on the field. You know, the leader of a football team isn't the coach. It's the captain. The leader has to be a player. The coach is a manager. He's a director. He gives orders. That's what officers in the military do. A general will call himself a leader. He'll say his best skill is leadership. When was the last time you were kicking open a door with 8 guys behind you, guns blazing? Never. So you're not leading. You're directing. You're coordinating. That's an important job. We need the smartest, best people doing that job. But they're not leaders. And they all want to believe that they are. And I hate to break it to them, but, you know, if you're an officer in the military, you may have leadership qualities, but you're not leading troops. You're leading the people that are directly around you, right? Your subordinates, your direct subordinates and peers. So if I'm a general, I'm not leading privates on the battlefield. I'm leading colonels, right? If I'm a 4-star general, I'm leading 3-star generals. So yeah, there's leadership, but not the way that they think it is. And so I think leaders have to lead from the front, right? Because the idea is you follow. Leaders are not, you know, it's a skill that you improve, but I've always believed that being a leader is something natural. You know, people that are leaders are often leaders wherever they go, even when they're not the most skilled or the most knowledgeable. And it's not because they're the best at it. It's because for whatever reason, people follow them. They listen. They just choose to listen to them. So the leader isn't the guy who comes up with the best decision. He's not the facilitator, the manager. He's just the guy they follow. And one of the things that reason people follow you is they believe in you. They believe that you have their best interests in mind. They feel safe. They trust you. And you can only build that if you're doing the same thing as them, right? If you're in the front. So the leader on a football team is the captain, not the coach. The leader in the military is the squad leader, right? The team leader. They use that word. You're a squad leader or a team leader. An officer could be a leader. He's a platoon leader, maybe. But that's it. There's no, you're not a general leader. You're just a general, right? So leadership is on the field, whether that's battlefield, whether it's work, right? How many times does a CEO have you have a Zoom meeting with your company, you got 60 people on the Zoom meeting and your CEO just talks the whole time and he says, leadership, but you're not leading us. You're a CEO. You're sending emails, you're doing your stuff, you're crunching numbers. We're over here, shoveling shit. So the leader is the guy that's shoveling shit with us. We follow him. The CEO is the director of the guy, the head shit shoveler, right? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Say it in maybe another way. What's the difference between a director and a leader?
Yeah. So a director is more, he gives direction. He's essentially asking the leader to.
Is he setting the course? Is he setting the
He's
vision?
setting the objective, kind of, maybe, right? He's determining what needs to be done. And
this is the plan, and then the leader executes.
Yeah, well, the leader gets the guys, the workers, the soldiers, the players to execute, to follow, because they follow him. So the leader goes and executes with everybody, right? And he's demonstrating in real time, this is how you do it. Follow me, right?
So lead by
do what
example.
do what I do. The director, the commander, is just asking for a result. When the director or the commander believes that he's the leadership, the organization, just like the Dallas Cowboys, right? Just like some current political administrations begins to crumble. When the director, when the guy in charge realizes that he's not a leader and he spends more energy trying to be in charge, he spent less energy trying to be in charge and more energy trying to find the best leaders. That's success. Napoleon revolutionized the entire military world because he was the first ever leader. He was a leader. He was the first ever commander of an army to say, my officers, my leaders, are not going to be the richest. They're not going to be the nobility. They're not going to be the protected. My direct leadership are going to be the privates that have demonstrated the best. So he created the non-commissioned officer, the NCO, the core of the military. Lead by example. The guy who's going to lead the troops is not going to be the person who was born richest. It's going to be the guy who has demonstrated over years that he is the best at that. The one who the people naturally follow, the one who communicates the best, the one who is meant to do that is the one who's going to do it, not the one who pays the most money. That was the first military ever to do that. And look what Napoleon did, right? That revolutionized. That's why Ukraine defeats Russia. Morale is what wins wars, morale, because that gives you the ability to continue on, to keep fighting. Morale is boosted by good leadership. It is not boosted by generals, presidents, CEOs. Morale is boosted by the support or the senior right above you, right?
Who are some of the best
Peer.
leaders that you've worked with?
I don't want to name specific names so much because there's so many people, but the one thing the best leaders all had in common is they were able to demonstrate and explain what they wanted to do. If there was because sometimes people just don't get it, you know? I might be able to show you like, oh, I scored a touchdown. This is how you do it. Score a touchdown. But it doesn't mean you can just do it. So the leaders that I think are the best are the ones that are able to somehow make the people do it, make the people care. Let me backtrack. The best leaders are the ones that create a caring, right? If you're running a company, a business, you've got employees. You don't want them to steal from you, right? You can threaten them, say, if you steal from me, I fire you. If you steal from me, I punish you, right? But it still might happen. If you exploit those employees, if you make them feel exploited, if you make them feel like they're there to make you money, they'll begin to take an adversarial position towards you, right? And when they have the opportunity, if they feel exploited, they're going to react, right? They're going to take. If your employee feels like family, if they feel like your son or your daughter or your sister or your brother, they would never steal from you. Every decision they make would be in the best interest of the company, even when they're not at work, right? Most people work, like they say in that movie Office Space, most people work just hard enough not to get fired because their goal is to get a paycheck, right?
Yeah.
But if you create inside your business, you create a sense of family, of belonging, every decision I make is going to be in the best interest of the company because that's my family, right? And what does a family give that nobody else gives? Like love, right? Compassion, caring. So that's part of that leadership. People follow the ones that they believe care about, that actually believe it, right? And you build the strongest bonds and team when you have that family approach, in my opinion, right?
And that showed up when you were in the Army?
Yeah. The squads that succeeded. You'd see these weird things. You know, you'd see squads that were very authoritatively directed and stratified, and then you'd see squads that it was a squad that didn't work well. It was maybe like, yes, Sergeant, no, Sergeant, yes, Sergeant Smith, no, Sergeant Smith. Squad maybe together, they'd be like, hey, what's up, Tom? Hey, yeah, Paul, I got this for you. You know, we're on first name basis. I know all of my soldiers' wives. I know all their kids' names. I know all their hobbies. I know where they're from. I know their parental situations. I know everything about them. Not because I want to know it, because I care about them, because they tell it to me, because we converse, because we hang out, you know, because we're real humans enjoying each other's time, you know, when we're not, you know, shooting guns or whatever. You become like family. And that just has to be genuine. You know, you can't fake that.
You shared in transitioning from active duty into civilian life that you started guiding veterans up mountains.
Yeah.
Explain your relationship with nature and
So, you know, when I first started going to vet centers, talking to this great counselor at the vet center, and he said the importance to suppress this kind of like internal fight, you know, inside the warrior spirit. He said, get outside, get out in nature, just go hike, right? Just go climb. He said, hell, if you have to, get your rifle and bring it with you. And I started doing that, and I don't know how to explain it, but the interaction with the natural world, when you're in the woods, when you're in the mountains, the things that you're absorbing, seeing, realizing, ground you. They bring internal peace. Just to be able to, standing over this valley, this canyon, to breathe that in, to see it, you know, it requires some aspect of presence. There's a peace and a serenity in the wilderness and the mountains. You're learning, you're seeing, you're engaging, but you're not really talking, right? There's no music, there's no phones. And to be able to function, to do whatever you're doing, you almost have to calm yourself. So I think it's therapeutic in that way. On top of that, you add physical activity, right? Physical activity reduces cortisol, produces dopamine, right? That's part of it. You get sunshine, you're synthesizing vitamin D. So being outside, I think it's just, I mean, who goes to the beach and doesn't feel better, right? Who sits on top of a mountain peak and doesn't feel. Show me a guy who summits a mountain peak and isn't happy. I'll show you a liar, right? Like it is the best feeling in the world to summit that peak that you thought you couldn't, and to see that view that you earned. That's another aspect. So with vets, to what the mountains did is it's a great connection because you have to build a team, you have to work together, you have to build the team, find the guys that you want on it. You have to train them, make sure they're able to do the tasks. You have to practice, work together, and then you have a goal or an objective, whether it's summit, cross this river, whatever, and then you go and accomplish that. Our brains, especially the male brain, our brains are rewired. We have massive dopamine releases when we complete tasks. When you finish the puzzle, when you beat the level on the video game, when you go, I'm all done. When the lawn is mowed, when I hit that last, and you're just like, yeah, I mean, right? Oh, man, look at my lawn, I'm done. Well, we have massive dopamine releases when we complete tasks. So wilderness stuff is a way to have a task that might be hard or could take more than a day, right? Might take more than an hour, it could take a week. A continual task, so you get this dopamine release that you've done something, but you've built this synapse for continued success, right? So if I summit, that's a big thing. If I summit, I'm successful, right? If I don't summit, I'm not saying you don't learn anything, you're not successful, but you haven't completed your mission. So you kind of have to keep going back out there until you complete it and get more completions. If I'm running a tackling drill, guy goes up, he misses the tackle, all right, or he doesn't do the tackle right, run him again, right? He doesn't do it right. Okay, third time you got it right, good, you're done. No, because you've done it wrong twice and you've done it right once. So we're still down one wrong, right? We have more synapses for the wrong thing than we do the right thing. So you did it wrong twice. Okay, now you've done it wrong, you've done it right. Well, we need to do it right 60, 70 more times to build that neural pathway, right? So I think that the mountains gives you, it's a long-term building for completing tasks, for succeeding, for working together as a team, dealing with adversity and challenge. And if you don't succeed that day, you come back tomorrow, right? So it's training for life, for business, for military, for friendships, for teams. And the more risk you add, I think the stronger that learning process is, right? If you're in a situation where you have to save your own life, you really learn. You're embedding that. If you're in a process where it doesn't matter, it doesn't have any value to you, it's not as strong a pathway. LTPs, long-term potentiations, right? So frequency increases efficacy, right? Which increases the ability to succeed. But desire has more of effect than just repetition. You can take two people with equal talent and have them both throw a football 10,000 times. They could be genetically identical. But the one who wants to be a quarterback more than anything, the one who's enjoying it, having fun, is going to get exponentially better than the guy who doesn't care, even though they did the same thing. And that's because of what's built up here, right? Metacognition, cognitive introspection, the idea of thinking about how you think is massive in producing results for how you act.
Well, I'm very passionate about nature. Some of my favorite memories with you are in nature, and I want to gift you some of the nature that I helped to create here. I brought you some Be Micro products.
Yeah.
A blend of broccoli, radish, red cabbage. I know these are products that you use today.
Love these. So, look, on a side note, I love these products, and for different reasons. One, I'm able to get the stuff that I get out of this. There's very few things that I put in my body that I get a noticeable difference, right? There's some peptides that I work with, like BPC 157, and I take a collagen booster for like some joint stuff, and you see differences. After a month, you see the difference. This product, the first microgreens you sent me, I started seeing a different. I saw a difference in my mental acuity, right? I felt like my brain had a little bit more fuel. Okay, there was a nutrient, there was something I was deficient on that I was missing. And when I started taking the product, I started getting it. I didn't grow all these muscles or all that, but there was something in there that I was missing, right? And so I'm like, I need these things. I like them. And I add them into my daily routine. And my favorite way, what I love to do with these microgreens, I don't know if anybody does this. I like teas. I love coffee. I take the microgreens, I put them into the grinder with my beans. I grind it up. I add a couple other things, usually some cinnamon, some nutmeg, and then I steep it in my French press. So I'm making like a microgreen tea with my coffee. That's one of my favorite ways. But like the sprout style microgreens, I just throw them on stuff. I mean, I make smoothies for my kids. I can't feed my kids Brussels sprouts or, they're not going to eat sprouts on a sandwich, right? I throw them into a blender with a smoothie. They just got like a double dose of microgreens and they're like, are unaware. I love putting it on eggs. A lot of times, this sounds dumb, but a lot of times I use it kind of as a garnish because I think they look really good on the plate and they make the food pop. So, whatever I'm presenting, if I'm making scrambled eggs even, right, or a burrito or whatever, chilaquiles, I'm just throwing a handful of microgreens on there. It's almost like a garnish, like when you put basil on there, but they're getting lapped up. I mean, I eat everything on the plate. So it's kind of like you highlight the food. People go, oh, that's cool. What is that? But they don't realize, like, I just gave you 90% of the nutrients you just got from this meal came from that that pinch of green right there, right? So they made a noticeable difference in my life. I love them. The only thing I complain about, I think, is probably the one thing everybody complains about. They cost money.
They cost money. Yeah. We'll come on the podcast and you get gifted some. I also liked when we were playing around with the idea of these freeze-dried meals.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that thread gets picked up for us again
sometime. I think so. I think there's something really there. I mean, when you think about food, 70 to 90% of the mass of food, the call it the weight, if you will, is water, right? By removing that, you're able to carry 10 times more food, right? And that's not mass.
Extend the shelf life.
Yeah. Mass is not just weight; it's also volume. So you have more, and removing the water, like it is now extending the shelf. There's less that happens. A peptide company that I do some business consulting with. That's how peptides are distributed. They're distributed usually in a powder, so small that you can't see it. It looks like the vial's empty. You add a reconstitution liquid, and now you have how many ever milliliters. Well, that's revolutionized their shipping, their ability to preserve things. They can make these products that never go bad. Well, you do that with food, dude. I mean, you could potentially stock food for an emergency, right? If we were stocking, freeze-dried, dehydrated nutrients, 10 years from now, if there's a famine, I've got this,
stockpile, ready to go.
Yeah. Oh, just add water. And I think the future too is, I think freeze-dried, dehydrated food is the future because you can put anything you want in it. You can put the nutrients, you can put the vitamins, you can put what you need in it. Hell, you can put a peptide in it, right? You can put whatever you need into it, and then you can just create the flavor. If it's in a powdered form, right? It's like mashed potatoes. That's what I did with the food samples you created for me were awesome. But I was kind of serving them up almost like in a mashed potato form. But I can just grab something from my spice rack and make this taste like chicken parm, right? I could make it taste like beef stroganoff, even though it's apples, broccoli, and and iron or whatever, because of what it is. The only thing that I can't change is the texture. I think it could potentially be the future. I also think it could really be the future for humanitarian aid, right? One of the big humanitarian aid. I forget what it's called, but it's basically like a caramelized nut bar. It's like a sugar bar, a carb.
I remember
heavy.
talking about that.
Yeah, it's like almost peanut butter based, and it's just kind of like a candy that you give to people. Calorie heavy. So, dude, we could do better than that. And again, still 75% of it is water weight. We could produce a powder where a spoonful is a week's worth of nutrients, right?
Yeah.
And you can distribute that. So when you're talking about humanitarian aid, you're not talking about enjoyable, comfortable meals. You're talking about survival. So I think that's the future, You can have packets of nutrient and vitamin And as long as you got water, you're living. So
I love thinking about that. After this, I want to tell you about another business I'm working on with somebody. But kind of wrapping this up, you've spoken to me about peptides before. I've never taken them. I know you're working with them in a good way. What are peptides, and what are some of the benefits people might receive from them?
I think the best way to just think about peptides is to think of them as similar to like proteins, but smaller, right? It's in your body. It's like a chain of amino acids, essentially. But they make up a lot of the chemicals that are in your body naturally, are peptides. And as we become older or we have certain ailments in our life, we're not producing what we need to recover, to function. So they're like, if you think of the endocrine system often responds, it's your HPA axis, right? Your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, right? It's all this gland system that runs basically, from the top of your brain down to your neck, and it tells your body what hormones, right? This kind of first, second, and third order neuro hormones running your endocrine system. And sometimes it's telling you what to do, how to function, what to build, whatever, right? Testosterone has a byproduct, say like a metabolite or something like DHT. So as you have testosterone, eventually you produce DHT. Well, that clogs your hair follicle, and then you go bald, right? So the thing that's making us able to grow muscle is also the thing that's making us go bald, stuff like that. So these peptides, these hormones, they play a function in your body. Some of them play functions in recovery, building cartilage, building collagen, tendon strength, ligament strength, right? Some of them deal with brain function, right? You need a certain number of available amino acids to do things in your brain, right? And sometimes we can get stuff from food, but if I'm eating food, I may be burning up a lot of that in not what I want. Like say I want to build muscle, I eat protein, right? Well, if I'm also running, all that protein is going to go to caloric deficit. I'm not going to build any muscle, right? So I have to have enough calories to fuel, and then I have enough available protein that's sitting there that also has sugars to carry it so that it can go build muscle, right? And so we produce these peptides, but sometimes we don't produce enough or what we need to recover. Or you see a lot of this GLP-1 now. They're this weight loss stuff, right?
That's like Ozempic.
Yeah, I'm not into that stuff. I don't. I feel like if you're having trouble losing weight, it's probably because you're not eating right and not
I think
exercising.
it can be helpful to get people feeling a little momentum.
Absolutely.
The problem is when people are like, "Oh, now I'm on this forever."
Well, yeah, whatever it works. Like, so for instance, I'll take cortisone shots for my back, right? And some people are like, "Don't do that. My back gets inflamed. I can't do anything." I take the cortisone shot. It relieves the pain. Now I can do deadlifts, I can do cleans, I can do pull-ups again. And by doing deadlifts, cleans, pull-ups, my back is better and I don't have any more pain. It's not really the cortisone shot didn't fix my back. It just gave me a week of no pain so that I could fix my back.
It's only a week.
No, I mean, cortisone shots for some people last years, right? Like I get one every 3 years.
Oh, okay.
My brother gets one like every week because he just gets it until the pain goes away.
Whoa.
And after the pain goes away, he goes back to sitting on the couch and typing on the computer, right? He's had multiple back surgeries, more cortisone shots than I can count. He's had vertebrae fused together.
From ski rescue?
Yeah, from being a badass ski patroller, from rescue. I mean, it's the same thing for all of us. It's from sitting down. I mean, I don't care what you say. It's from sitting down and driving a car, right?
Yeah.
If your L4, L5's inflamed, you probably sit a lot. If it seems to be more on your left side, it's probably you drive a lot, right? Because your right leg's engaged and your left one's off to the side, right? You're always tilted. Next time you get in your car, you're not straight. You're usually like this.
You're right.
Because your pedal leg is centered and your other leg's out. Well, you do that for a few hours a day for 30 years. You're going to have imbalanced hip. Your left hip's going to be back, right? Anyway, my point is, he has the surgeries, he has the cortisone, he does all that stuff. He never has success. He never gets the result he wants. The only thing he doesn't do is the physical therapy, is the hard work. Hey, you got the cortisone, Cool. Now you got to go to the gym.
Physical therapy is magic.
it's-
I got a ski injury and it brought me back.
Yeah.
Easy. I thought I was researching stem cells and Mexico and
Yeah.
all this. They're like, all you need is a foam roller.
And so that's, yeah. And as you start to engage in this activity, right, as you start to do this thing, your body wants you to stop. It creates pain because it wants you to stop. The pain is to say, hey, stop doing that. But once you tell your body, like, no, we're not, we're doing this, it says, okay, now the pain's kind of a problem. And since we're doing this, let me stop sending the pain signal out there. And since we're doing this, let me send you the stuff that you need, right? So, I mean, physical therapy, it's the mechanics of it, but it's also the mental, right? It's telling yourself, no, I'm not going to succumb to the pain. I'm going to continue. I'm going to fight through. This is what we're doing. And once the brain says, this is what we're doing, it makes the body follow.
What type of benefits can somebody receive from peptides? What might they experience?
I'd say it's unlimited. you
Really?
know. Oh, well, the company that I do consulting with, and I believe in this company, they're called Limitless Biotech, right?
Strong name.
And I just now made that connection, right? But no, it's limitless what you can do with peptides. I mean, it's everything that makes up your body. It's everything you need, right? So what you do with, like, say, this particular company, I don't know how all companies work, but with Limitless Biotech, you basically consult with them. They figure out what's your goal. You know, are you dealing with a skiing injury? Are you trying to fix your knee? Are you trying to lose weight? Are you struggling with mental cognition? Are you trying to fight Alzheimer's? Are you trying to fight dementia?
Wow.
Unbelievable the things they do. I mean, I've talked with one of the guys who works with the company. It's a guy I met. We became great friends. He was paralyzed from the waist down, and they told him he would never walk again. You know, he went snowboarding with Mike Shelley last year.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Peptides?
Peptides,
What?
dude.
Now, why aren't more people talking about this? Because the pharmaceuticals can't make money on it? You can't patent it?
Yeah, that's a huge one. One, you can't patent it. All you can really patent is the delivery, right? The mechanism for delivery. The pen, right? The Ozempic pen. But the peptides, it's already in your body. You can't patent it, right? So things that I think make the peptide company better, because I really do believe this is the future, right? What makes the company better is the internals of the company. You know, that's why I like Limitless Biotech. They have peptides the same. You know, 2 + 2 = 4 no matter what college you go to, right? The GLP-1 is GLP-1 no matter who makes it. But this company spends time with the person to figure out what it is that they really need. What's their real goal? You know, you might say, oh, I want to be healthy, but I really mean I want to look better, right?
Yeah. It's not one size fit all.
They honestly figure it out, and they create, if you want, the peptide cocktail that's best for you. Yeah. And they stick with you and they monitor you and adjust everything for what you need, right? And they have the ability to do all sorts of tests to see what you're missing, what you need. All that aspect, everything they do there is free. That's just, they just want the CEO of the company, Cody, is this great guy. He only does this because he's passionate. They're an amazing company. They make tons of money. He probably doesn't even know. He's not paying attention to those numbers. He's trying to change the world and change people's lives. And so, you know, it's what can they do? What is it that you need? Let's spend time and energy figuring out what you need, and we've got the answer's already here. You know, all we got to do is measure it, mail it to you. You inject it, you have somebody else inject it, whatever. But they are successful because they connect to the consumer and figure out what does this person really need. That's what they did for me. You know, I've got this hamstring injury. I've got this. You know, I've got no ACL in my left knee. I've had 2 shoulder surgeries. You know, bone replacement. I'm 43 years old. I've broken my back more times than I can count. I mean, I'm trashed, you know, I'm stressed out. I got all this stuff. I'm starting now, the first time in my life, to have vision issues. I'm having mental issues, right? Like, you know, it's getting harder to remember things. I'm just feeling burned out. My golf game's, it's almost like in decline, my golf game. Dude, I get on these peptides. I took this one. It's like for brain function. It's called C-Max and Celank. Dude, I had my best golf score. It was a nasal injection, right? I took it. It was supposed to help with like mental acuity, clarity, right?
Like a spray?
Like executive function, yeah, like a nasal spray.
Wow.
Dude, I took it, and my golf game was like 5 or 6 strokes better immediately.
Wow.
My ability to like make my body because if you don't play golf, you should. It's the coolest. It's a great
I
sport.
play a little bit.
Yeah, it's so hard, right? It's like really hard. But my ability to because you have to hit the ball straight, like to take a good golf shot, there's 10 things you got to do.
Yeah.
If you can do 6 of them, the ball goes straight, right? But it was giving me the ability to do all these 10 things, like it was instant.
What's the downside? It seems like there's nothing.
Yeah,
nothing's
and
free.
that's what I've. But what's the downside? Coming, out of my background in behavioral neuroscience, there isn't really a downside to peptides because they're not hormones, right? It's not like testosterone or cortisol where it runs off a negative feedback loop. If there's a certain amount in the system, the body starts producing it. If I increase my testosterone levels artificially, my testicles will produce less testosterone.
Yeah.
Because there's an equilibrium I'm supposed to be at, right?
Once you stop taking that testosterone, your body has already stopped making it.
Yeah, exactly,
And then
right?
you're just out of testosterone.
That mechanism is called a negative feedback loop,
Okay.
right? These peptides, they don't work like that, right? So if you put in too much, your body does. That's why we need to add them, because if I need more testosterone, sure, I could take an injection, but the better thing would be to do front squats. If I want to boost my testosterone, like right now, if you want to max testosterone, I'm telling you, you pick weight up off the ground and you lift it above your head.
Okay.
Favorite exercises, Josh Jesperson showed me, Turkish get up. A lot of people, oh, it's dumb. Why do I do this? Because I'm taking weight from the ground and I'm lifting it above my head. Yeah, it's got all these physical things. Nothing produces more testosterone in the body. And this is like the Russian Bible of bodybuilding. Nothing produces more testosterone than lifting weight from the ground above your head. And it's coming from the quads. And it's true. So a mutant maker, anybody listen to this? Mutant maker is like a hang clean. You front squat with it, and then you push it above your head. So it's hang clean to thruster. Do that with heavy weight. Do 20 of those. You will feel it instantly. You'll feel it as quick as when you take drugs. And you'll be like, I've never felt like that. And if you do that every day, you're going to start building muscle. You're going to change your testosterone levels, but the negative feedback loop's going to work, because doing these exercises, you produce it, but you need it. You expend it. Right, so your body
And having
says produce
increased
more.
testosterone does what? I mean,
Well,
just besides like sex drive. Does
I think for men, I brought that up just because it's hot. It's on the news or on TV all the time. Take this product, boost your
it gives
testosterone.
you confidence, clarity.
Yeah, I think a big thing is it allows you to build muscle. Right. It's also it's a precursor. Right. So it's one of those first order neurohormones, but it tells your body to do a lot of other things. Right. So you need, in my opinion, and for men, men and women aren't the same, but for men, testosterone is so important. When you stop producing it or your levels start to drop, it's the first indicator that your body's saying, okay, I'm in the second, right? The first half is living and growing. The second half is dying. So it's saying, hey, we're making this transition to death. There's a lot of things that humans stop doing that I think start to indicate, hey, it's time to die. Number one, most humans will never reach full sprint after the age 25 ever again. When was the last, and I know you're an athlete, you run, but when was the last time you reached full sprint? Not a jog, not a full.
Yeah, I haven't felt it since I was in track in high school. And I run, and then I do add in sprints during. And the more I do that, the stronger I feel.
Yes.
But I'm not like
So when we think about sprints, this is caveman stuff. What does a sprint do? It makes you survive, right? You have to run. There's a great research paper I just read that talked about the importance of fear, right? And high risk stuff. When you have to survive, when you force yourself to survive, you're basically forcing yourself to live. If I stop sprinting, if I maybe don't procreate, if I stop achieving goals, I'm telling my body we're done.
wow.
One of the biggest factors to preventing or correlations with the prevention of dementia is how long do you continue to do math? Most people stop doing real math aside basic arithmetic after high school or college, right? I did calculus. I took calculus in high school. I took it in college. I haven't used calculus since then. For whatever reason, people who use calculus use parts of their brain that nobody else does. And there's a massive correlation with people who continue to do math. A croupier in a casino, right, the craps dealer, he does incredibly fast, efficient permutations of complex numbers. Oh, you got a 2 and 7 of this, it turns to 36. I got to pay you out this much. You put in $1,000. I got to multiply it by 1. But instantly, for 12 people at a table, while he's moving dice, looking at a mirror to make sure people aren't cheating, and calling out bets. If you've never been to a craps table, go watch the croupier or the stick guy or whatever. They have really low rates of dementia.
Wow.
Yeah, dealers in casinos, because they're doing high-level math fast. So anyway, my point is what I'm trying to say is I believe that when you stop doing things, right, you're telling your body that we're done here. So you have to continue to work out. You have to continue to sprint. You have to continue to complete and achieve goals to say we're not done yet. You have to do you mentioned like testosterone and sex drive. Well, sex drive is important because all living beings, their existence, evolutionary, is to procreate, right? What if you stop procreating or make your body think you're not procreating? Well, now you're dying, right? Wow. So sex is important, not just the drive, but I think you have to do it. Interesting, right?
Anything else that you want to share?
Dude, to be honest with you, I just want to come back. I just turn off the microphones. Let's just talk more. I wish I could sit here for 10 hours. I'll just ramble. It's such great conversation. I think if there's one thing I could say that somebody could take from whatever this podcast or this conversation is, the importance, and in society, we need to do this. We talked about it with like medications for ailments or whatever. We have to be honest, and we have to identify. We have to fix the problem, all right? If you have depression, right, why do you have depression? Depression is an evolutionary, it's a mechanism for success, for change. I'm depressed. Why am I depressed? Because there's something I'm not doing that I'm supposed to do, right? There's a dysfunction. So I can take a medication and stop being depressed, theoretically, but I'm not completing that task. So eventually, if my body's good, it's going to make the depression strong enough to override that medication. Oh, I'm so depressed, like I don't make enough money, I'm poor, I'm depressed, right? Okay, so you can take medication, drink alcohol.
Just Band-Aids.
Yeah, but you're still depressed because you're not rich, right? So the way to solve that problem is to go out and do whatever you have to do. Depression is function. It's good. Depression tells you to fix stuff, right, that you need to fix. And it says, hey, if you don't fix this, I'm going to punish you by making you depressed. So we need to, as people, as society, we need to see what the signals that our body's telling us. And we have to stop making the choice of, how do I remove this thing? Oh, my leg hurts. How do I make it stop hurting? By fixing it, right? Don't just maybe take the ibuprofen, but like you have to go do the physical therapy to fix it. So just in all life, I think we need to do that. We see in science, they say people want to reduce their A1C, right? Oh, I'm diabetic, right? I can't do anything. Let me reduce my A1C. I'm type 2, right? It's not a disease. It's a lifestyle, okay? So the guy's type 2. His A1C is 10. If you have an A1C of 5.7, you're diabetic or something, right? He's got an A1C of 10. So and we've got this correlation that defines diabetes. But the A1C is the final, it's the measurement. So you can take a medication that reduces your A1C, but you're still diabetic. You just change your test result. Do you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, you're still eating shitty. Mm-hmm. You're still filled with all this stuff. You're still dying. Mm-hmm. You're still insulin resistant. Mm-hmm. It just says your A1C is lower. So like cholesterol, right? They say cholesterol kills you, right? It's linked to heart disease, right? There's a correlation. There is. Cholesterol doesn't do anything to you. If you eat shitty and don't exercise, you have high cholesterol, right?
And there's different kinds of cholesterol too.
Yeah. And even further from that, I'm gonna go this far. Cholesterol isn't bad. Cholesterol isn't, or at least let's just say like HDL isn't bad, right? Or whatever. But they still correlate it. They say if your cholesterol levels are this, you're more likely for heart disease. So they say you have to lower your cholesterol.
With statins.
Yeah. But that's not, if I'm eating, my cholesterol's high because I'm eating shitty and I'm not exercising, right? it's not the cholesterol that's killing me. It's the eating shitty and not exercising. So if I take a statin and I lower my cholesterol, I'm still not eating healthy and I'm still not exercising.
Yeah.
But the doc it says, oh, well, now you're not at risk.
Yeah.
I'm still at the same risk.
And the doc's making money off
Right?
that.
And cholesterol as a chemical, what it actually does to your body, the only research I've been able to see in correlation that shows real causation is cholesterol is linked to longevity and strength. People who live over 100 years, just go look it up, they got high cholesterol. My whole family on my dad's side has cholesterol issues. All of them are on statins. All of them. They wanted me on it.
They wanted me on it too.
I don't count anybody on my dad's side who the youngest death on my dad's side was 98 years old.
Wow.
Right? We're talking 100, 102, 101. My whole family. And they
Wow.
all got high cholesterol. But now they're all getting put on meds to lower their cholesterol. For the
Because
first time,
the doc's convinced
I'm
them.
worried that my dad's going to be the first one to not make it to the
Yeah,
90s.
the statins are going to kill him.
Yeah. But
And trying to convince him not to eat
yeah.
high fat, high protein.
Yep. And so that's what I mean is like whether it's depression, whether it's cholesterol, whatever it is, all these are just indicators of what we need to change in our life. And what we need to change is our actions, our routine, right? Whether it's eat healthy, work out more, whatever it is. Treat the ailment, not the symptom. That goes all the way on for life.
And find someone that can help you figure
Yeah.
out what the ailment is.
Yeah.
Not someone who's just like, let me just give you statins and let me give you these Band-Aids.
And like, I guess the last thing, like to wrap this up, because I've just been talking, we've gotten way over whatever.
we're great.
I'm
We're
burning
great.
time. I'll be in trouble when I get home. My
Okay.
girlfriend's going
Well, you're going to gift her one of these microgreens. One's for her.
Yeah, awesome. But so thank you. She'll say thank you, I'm sure. You asked me something important. I think one other thing is the importance of, and it sounds simple, but just not complaining, not bitching about shit in life, right? And this is huge. It's bigger than the simplicity it's said with. Let's say I have a task. This is what I say to my son. I'm like, hey, you got to go clean your room. He's like, I hate cleaning my room. I hate it, right? I'm like, well, you got to do it. You got no choice. So he like sits there and he complains and and it takes him, 30 minutes. Do you remember it used to take you so long to clean your room when you're little because you hate it and it's miserable and he hates doing it. And what he doesn't get is he's going to do it no matter what because I'm making him do it. So if you're going to spend 30 minutes cleaning your room, you can sit there for 30 minutes complaining, hating it, or you can be like, I love cleaning. Oh, clean my room? Yeah, finally. When were you going to ask? I love it. Yeah, that's fake, but either way, you're doing it. So you're going to do it. So while you're doing it, do you want to be miserable or do you want to be happy? That choice is up to you. The choice of cleaning your room is not up to you. That's up to me. But the choice of being happy or sad is up to you. So sometimes we just have to realize that this is what we're doing. It's what we're going to do. And we might as well pretend we like it, right? If my one son said, Colby said, if I could have any super ability, it would be the ability to like things I don't like, because then I would be able to do anything. And I'm like, it's genius, right? Oh God, maybe you listen to me. I'm like, this guy's a genius. If you can pretend to enjoy it, if you can find satisfaction, you're camping out in the cold rain, you're like, oh, I love the cold rain. This makes me tougher.
Yeah.
This is more of a challenge, right? This Navy SEAL said the coolest thing. He said, everybody finds excuses to fail, right? To quit, because they want to quit. They're in pain. But they don't want to because they have pride. So they say, well, I got a bad back, so I'm going to quit. I blew out my knee. I'm going to quit. Yeah. Oh, my blood my core temperature reached this, so I can quit, right? They're finding excuses to quit. Why would you find it an excuse to not do what you want to do? Find an excuse to win is what he said. And that sounds kind of like, huh? No. Yeah, my back hurts, whatever, I'm cold. But because of who I am, I'm not quitting. Because it's hard, because I have this knee injury, I'm going to make sure to do it. I'm going to find an excuse to win, to survive, rather than an excuse to give up or quit. Put all that energy into winning instead of quitting.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Where can people learn more about you, connect with you?
People can connect with me. I'm on Instagram, right? I'm not big on there. I don't post a lot, but I love to communicate. Instagram, I'm Van Dutchie, VanDutchie. On LinkedIn, Schuyler, SCHUYLER _Nippert, NIPPERT.
We'll link that.
Yeah, come out, talk to me, whatever. Anybody who's ever interested in talking, I'm there, right? I'll talk all day, as you can tell, right? But I'll listen too. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, dude, thank you, man. Thanks again. I mean, every time I talk to you, no matter what we talk about, I leave the conversation a little bit smarter with a little bit better view. So I appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.